And in my opinion, I think the more people that go over to YouTube and the more people that are going to different streaming platforms, the better. Right now, I think that Twitch does not innovate their website as much as they should because they feel like they have a monopoly over live streaming. I do not think this is this is a long-term strategy. I don't think this is going to happen in general. It's an L for Twitch streamers. It is, but that's actually a W for Twitch streamers because eventually Twitch will have to actually start making content and a product that people want to watch. And I think this will obviously take a while. I'll certainly say that for sure. Would you move to YouTube? Would I ever move to YouTube for any situation ever? Of course I would. Am I actively looking at moving to YouTube now? No, I'm not. Right now, the thing is, like, my YouTube channel does incredibly well. Both of my channels do incredibly well. I don't necessarily, I don't need to move over to YouTube. The way I look at it is like right now I'm double dipping. I literally put no work into YouTube and my stream puts all the work into it. And so I'm effectively building two platforms at once. I'm hitting two audiences at the same time. So it's a big positive for me to have Twitch and I can do stuff on Twitch as well. However, you know, is there ever a world where I would go to YouTube? Yeah, sure. I mean, like, I don't really want to write anything off, but it's not something that I'm planning on at this exact moment. What I think is really going to happen is you're going to see more and more people coming over to, over to YouTube and these other platforms because they just offer better incentives. I think also negotiating on Stream Smart, well, look, it's not negotiating on stream. I'm just saying, I think this is the same for anybody, right? I mean, I don't like to write a blank check, but if YouTube wants to write me one, then I guess I might return the favor. That's all I'm saying. And so, listen, I'm not going to worry about that too much. I think that, you know, that's probably not going to happen. I'm kind of an edgy creator, and, you know, a lot of that stuff. Twitch is smoother, man. I think that YouTube has a lot of positives. I think that YouTube, in the long run, will have more positives just because it has so much more infrastructure, and they just are so much bigger than Twitch. Like, for example, your ceiling on Twitch is like here. Your ceiling on YouTube is like up here, right? We're not going to see somebody get 50 million followers on Twitch in like the next probably 5 years. But meanwhile, we're seeing a lot of people hit that on YouTube because the ceiling is just simply higher. The Vigorous Bot with the 5 gifted community subs. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Like, you have to think about like Ninja, right? I think he's still the most subscribed person here, or sorry, followed person on Twitch. You know, he only had, I think it was like 7 or 8 million or something like that. It's not that many. And so I think that going over to YouTube is it's a good decision for a lot of people because also, it's very different than going over to Mixer, or I think even going over to Facebook. And the big difference for with it to me is the fact that YouTube doesn't really kill your it doesn't kill your channel in the same way that Twitch would kill your channel, or sorry, Mixer would kill your channel, or going to you know, Facebook Gaming or something like that would kill your channel. So, like, for example, yes, it does. Tell that to Ludwig. And anyway, like, tell that to Doc or Tim. Like, all of these guys are tremendously successful on YouTube, so there's no reason to be worried about that. Who won the soccer? I don't know what the soccer even is, to be honest with you. Facebook Live, Lamau? Listen, it happened though. Who uses Facebook anymore? I heard that it's actually really popular in like a weird way in Europe. I had no idea about this. That's what it is. You're not edgy at all compared to big YouTube streamers. Basically no word policing on YouTube. It's more free. Yeah, I think so, but like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it would be unlikely that that they would want to give me a contract, so I'm not that worried about it. I'm happy streaming here on Twitch. I think it's totally fine. For me, I'm going to be honest. The difference between me streaming on Twitch and YouTube is a different stream key. I don't give a fuck. Like, it doesn't matter. I know that there are some people that are for some reason loyal to Twitch. I find this to be silly, but you know, to me, I'm gonna go wherever you know, something popular is going to be, right? Wherever I think people want me to be, and that's all there is to it. Ludwig's been streaming on YouTube. Twitch is definitely better. The only reason people go to YouTube is money. That is true, but I think that it's becoming less and less true. And so here's, actually, I've got to go back. Like, oh my God, we got to talk about so much about YouTube. I didn't even realize this. Holy shit. We got to talk a lot about, you might be less popular, get more money. So each stream I do on Twitch gets like 1 to 2 million views, right? Somewhere around there. Like, we can just average that. So let's say each stream gets like 1.2 million views. I stream, let's see, like 5 days a week, 4 weeks, so let's say 23 days. So 23 times 1.2, let's see, how much is that going to be? That's going to be like 25 or 26 million. My YouTube channel, that's 26 million views a month on my channel here on Twitch. On YouTube, I have gotten that many views in a week. Like, I've gotten that many views in a fucking week between, like, my, the Asmongold Clips channel and the Asmongold TV channel. Yeah, my YouTube is way fucking bigger than my Twitch. Like, honestly, I just go on here just to record YouTube videos, guys. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it's not the same, though. Yeah, it is, trust me. Like, I'm the one that gets the checks. It's the same. And so, listen, it's fine. Actually, to be honest, well, I don't want to get it. I don't want to get a lot of that, but like, listen, we have a lot of well, it's difference. Yeah, I mean that's the truth. So like, it is the same. It works quite well. But anyway, I do think that Twitch is it's a smaller pond, right? And YouTube is a very big ocean. So let's watch the video from Saikuno here. There's a lot. Oh my God. I'm thinking about all the stuff that I want to talk about with this. I didn't even realize it was so much stuff, man. And so all those things you miss on stream, you watch on YouTube. That's good. Exactly. Yeah. Well, let me go back over here. We're going to take a look at it, okay, guys? How much do you pay McConnell? I don't pay McConnell, okay? Like, listen, McConnell has a really good system set up. McConnell's system is this. So, he will stream, everybody knows this, right? He streams every 6 months once for rent money. And it has this perfect equilibrium because it gets literally everyone to subscribe. Because there are people that like McConnell, so they want to subscribe to support his content. And then there's also people who don't like McConnell and they want to subscribe to make him go away faster. Because the faster he gets his money, the faster he's gone. You don't have to worry about him anymore. So like, let's start gifting some subs. Let's get this shit out of the way, right? We're going to get rid of this guy. And so you can pay to make him, you can pay because you like the content, or you can pay to make him leave. Either way, McConnell's making money. That's all there is to it. So, yeah, small brain viewers, that's what it is. I bought him a computer. Yeah, I mean, of course, right? I mean, if McConnell ever needed another computer, we do a computer giveaway for him, no problem, man. That'd be no big deal. But yeah, it just depends on if he wants one or not. Lots of small videos versus one big stream will obviously get more views. Very true. All right, let's watch the video, okay? Here we go. I've actually not watched this. Is that a cuck shed?
Is where it all started.
Grandma's
in a tiny shed in my parents' backyard.
Close enough.
I never planned on becoming a streamer.
So if I ever get one of these videos done, if I ever do move over to YouTube, I'm not gonna make it this like overly produced thing. I'm gonna make it where like I'm at Taco Bell and I'm like, yeah guys, so anyway, I'm on the phone. I wanted to make a quick video. So YouTube gave me a lot of money, and so I'm gonna be on tomorrow on YouTube because they gave me a lot of money. So I'll see you there. All right, peace. And that'd be it, you know. The treehouse video, yeah. I love how dramatic the videos are, man. Yeah, that's it.
I just wanted to play some games and make some friends.
That's
and
nice.
I did. I started off playing League.
Ooh.
Then Minecraft.
Ooh.
Valorant.
Oh, that's good.
Among Us.
Ooh.
GTA. I met some cool people and made some really good friends.
Talking about
and
me, probably.
I met all of you guys.
Psych. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, one sec. I'm gonna do what I've always done, just in a new place.
That was pretty good. I mean, I'll have to say, like, I mean, the music. I mean, fuck, was he going to YouTube or is he saving like a sinking ship full of kittens and like, you know, pregnant women, right? Like, what is this? Like, I mean, the music is just like, I feel like I'm watching Interstellar. God damn. I mean, am I wrong? Am I fucking wrong? Like, oh my God. And so, well, who returned? No, I think it doesn't, people cringe at this shit. Like, there's like 3 million people that watch this. Everybody thought it was great. Just because cringe, oh my God, he's being dramatic. It's a big deal for him, man. It is. Obviously, it might not be a big deal for you, but it's a huge step for a content creator to make, to do something like this. So I can see where he's coming from. I definitely can. It's still cringe. I don't get, like, I just... Bro, like, I forgot the last time I cringed at something. Like, is that weird? Like, I have no idea. Ludwig's new the pros and cons of YouTube. I watched that. I love Ludwig's personal videos, man. I think they're fucking great. I'll watch those in a few minutes, but let me finish this one first, okay? I just got here. Rewatch it, please. So basically, he's like, I'm a YouTube. I used to stream in a shed. I made some friends. Then there's Valkyrie is here. And then I'm going to YouTube. So that's pretty much the video. I know obviously you missed it, but there you go. And so that's it. You don't want to watch it again? No, I think the video's fine. It was pretty well produced, everything like that. Absolutely. What's this here? Audacity, rewatch it for me? Yeah. Do you think YouTube makes them overproduce an announcement video? Do I think YouTube makes them overproduce an announcement video? I don't think so at all. I think that they probably have, like, this is what they want to do by default because they think that's the best option. But I think that the content creator has, like, another vision on things. I think it's completely fine. Also, like, yeah, I don't think it's not a big deal, if that makes sense. It's not, what's this here? Valk said he wanted to do it. Yeah, I think it was fine. You watched any of the High Roller Poker game? No, I never watched any of that stuff. You see what this guy's coach said about other creators playing to move over? Yeah, I actually have it open here. I saw this whenever I got on this morning, and I was gonna watch that today too. But anyway, it's not a surprise to see Saikuno leave. I think that, you know, a lot of people in his friend group that he collabs with are already on YouTube. It makes sense for him to go over to YouTube. I think that really, when is YouTube actually going to be when is YouTube going to be a big platform that can actually compete with Twitch? And I will tell you exactly whenever YouTube will become a big platform that will compete with Twitch on live streaming. The moment that people move over to YouTube without a 7-figure contract. That's when. Because right now, everybody that's going over to YouTube, everybody that's streaming over on YouTube, all of these guys, they're doing this because they're getting paid. And like, you have exceptions, right? You have someone like Speed. Speed got banned on Twitch. He went over to YouTube. He's doing better than ever. You have Dr. Disrespect. Got banned on Twitch. Went over to YouTube. He's doing well. You have people like Ice Poseidon. The fact is, listen. Hold up. Wait a minute. Ice Poseidon was doing incredibly fucking well on YouTube. And the only reason Ice Poseidon's stream started doing worse is because of Ice Poseidon. It had nothing to do with YouTube. Ice Poseidon would have hit the same fucking, the same thing would have happened on Twitch because it was the content. The content, you can't keep upping the ante, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, Ice changed his content. Well, the content changed him as well. It was a bad situation, right? And that's why I think a lot of people liked watching it, but it's also the reason why it didn't have the same level of longevity as something like sitting around and playing video games. So, like, all I'm saying is that Ice Poseidon did incredibly well on YouTube. I think that on YouTube, you have a lot of opportunities to make content, and I think also, especially with these content creators, it's probably just easier for them to just, you know, go live and not have to worry about it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody was crazy. Like, I mean, the Ice Poseidon days were absolutely insane. Killed his own stream. What I'm saying is that it wasn't YouTube that killed his stream. Now, obviously, maybe on Twitch, it would have been easier for him to bounce back. It's really hard to say. Now we're talking about, like, theoreticals. But I think in general, it's something that I would assume is that there are people that are on YouTube that are doing well. But what I'm saying is that you're not going to have people that stay and go over to YouTube voluntarily until, like, you see content creators of a larger size doing the same thing. Now, in my opinion, I think that if Twitch removes exclusivity from its partner contracts, I feel like that's the worst thing that Twitch can do. And I don't think this is good. I think it's good for content creators, but it's bad for Twitch. It's actually bad for Twitch. And you want to know why I think it's bad for Twitch? Because who the fuck is going to sit there and watch a Twitch stream with the ads, one of 6? Boom, 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 boom. You're going to watch another fucking ad. After that, another fucking ad. Oh, and then, by the way, after the 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 3 minutes of ads is done playing, it doesn't reload the video because the player is inferior. Meanwhile, Twitch doesn't have ads like that in the same way. There's no requirement for people to run ads on YouTube, as far as I know, for live streaming, as there is with Twitch and a lot of other large content creators. And then also, the video quality is just simply better. Like, what is the maximum bit rate that you can stream at on YouTube? Like, I think that it's something very, very high. I don't remember exactly what it is, though. Former Red Claw with the 20 gift community subs. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 12K. No, it's not for. No, bit rate. I'm talking about bit rate, not resolution, guys. 16K. Yeah, so you can stream at 16K. That's nuts, man. Also, ads are way better on YouTube. You're right about that. Because you can click to skip an ad on YouTube. You're not always going to get an ad that's 30 seconds long and they're just like cascading down and down and down. So like YouTube just has a much better ad structure. So like why would there be, like what is the value add here? Let me ask you a very simple question. What is the value add in watching a stream on Twitch versus YouTube if you can watch the same stream at the same time? You see what I'm saying? Chat? Right. I've always said that I don't think chat matters as much as chat matters. I will also say this. Even if you disagree with that, what is an easier problem to solve? Your business model and your core software technology, or a chat box? I mean, yeah. Chat box is a lot fucking easier problem to solve. There you go. It's a simple fix. I think so too. I absolutely think so. Yeah, exactly. You can fix chat box with add-ons. Oh, I'm sure you can. We're unsolvable. YouTube chat's a plus. Honestly, Twitch chat is terrible. And yes, you've got people like that who actively dislike Twitch chat for whatever reason. So yes, Saikuno moving over to YouTube, and also, it's just gonna keep coming. Watch this. Watch this. Here we go. YouTube browse page is horrible to navigate. Yes, it's very bad. People said Twitch had discoverability. YouTube very competitive. Tried to beat them in that angle, and I think that they are winning. Here we go. Disguised Toast knows of 5 more streamers, at least 5 more streamers moving to YouTube. Okay, here we go.
Damn magic. Damn magic. Damn magic. Wow.
Why does it lag?
Damn
why does this
magic.
lag? Why can I not just?
Damn magic.
What is this?
Magic.
Dispel magic.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
I know
Oh,
of
range.
at least 5
Damn magic.
more.
Berserker magic. Scream. Dispel
Going
magic.
over,
Dispel magic.
which is a lot,
Stop.
honestly.
That's a whole lot of people.
Frost
Shield.
Nova. Frost Nova.
Chat, go ahead and
Dispel
guess the
magic.
5 are.
Polly.
I like how it just invites the
Hunter's
fucking
Mark.
speculation.
Ice
man.
block.
Oh my
Arcane
God.
Focus down.
And like, yeah,
Mana
it's
shield.
so you're
Sprint.
seeing a lot of people going over to YouTube, man.
Arcane
Like,
magic.
and that's what's
Shadow.
gonna
Slow
happen.
dash.
Yeah, it's gonna be
PS9.
Asmon. You guys
Ice
think I'm gonna
block.
go
Fear.
over to
Swift
YouTube?
Rend.
Man,
Link.
wouldn't that be
Dragon
crazy if
Shark.
that
Sprint.
was
Berserker stand. Shield.
Wow.
Affliction.
OTV.
Berserker
I think
ring.
that a lot of-
Arcane
I
shot.
feel like, listen, I think the
Blind.
guys that
Entangling
work at
roots.
YouTube are really smart.
Fear.
I do. I think that they're
Fear.
really
Swift Rend.
smart. They are analytically driven.
Fear. Bump.
And everything
Success.
like that. Like these guys really, really understand
Blink.
their shit, and they really know what they're doing. Because
Damage stand.
YouTube
Shard.
is
Berserker
the
stand.
first
Damage stand.
platform
Mana shield.
to actually try
Frost
to
ward.
build a
Mana
section.
shield.
And now, didn't Facebook do the same thing?
Mana shield.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Facebook pick up a bunch
Defense
of
stand. Disarm.
GTA
Berserker
content creators
stance.
pretty much at the same time? Didn't they do this?
Stop.
I'm pretty
Intercept.
sure that they did. Yes, they did. And so they did this after Twitch. After YouTube did from
Berserker
Twitch.
range.
So here's what the problem is
Set.
with these other content creator websites, whether it be Mixer, Facebook, YouTube, etc.
Psychic
And you see
screen.
YouTube
Remove
and Facebook
curse.
trying to break the mold and stop
Swift
doing
Rend.
this. Is
Frost
that
Nova.
YouTube?
Cheap shot. Goose strike.
there's
Swift Rend.
Mixer.
Damn.
You
Ice
cannot,
magic.
if you are
Cheap
on
Nova.
Twitch,
Hunter's mark.
is an
Arcane
ecosystem.
shot
It
in
is
range.
a forest. It is a
Damn
living,
magic.
breathing
Stop.
thing.
Cheap
And
shot.
you cannot take
Blink.
the biggest redwood tree in the
Arcane
whole
shot.
forest, which was
Death.
Ninja at the
Nature's
time.
sleeping
It
down.
was a
Berserker
big
stand.
fucking
Shout.
tree. A massive,
Inner focus.
girthy,
Icy
meaty
veins
fucking
down.
tree. And you
Affliction.
cannot
Focus
just
down.
take
Magic.
that
Slow
tree
shot.
and
Dispel magic.
transplant
Arcane
it
shot.
into
Dispel
the
magic.
middle of the
Dispel
desert
magic.
and then
Ancient.
expect it
Dispel
to
magic.
flourish. That tree is going
Palmer.
to
Remove dispel magic.
wilt and die.
Dispel magic. Cheap
Dispel
shot.
magic.
Counter scream.
Hunter's
Mono
burn.
sphere. Counter.
Arcane shot.
Kidney. Affliction.
You
Shot.
need the bugs.
Intercept.
You need the shrubs. You need the grass. You need the dirt. You need the birds, the monkeys, the I don't know, like cats or fucking like the tigers or some shit, right? And so you
Berserker's
need
magic.
the whole
Slow shot.
ecosystem in
Arcane
order
shot.
for that
Purge.
gigantic fucking
Purge.
tree to survive. Even though,
Damage
even
stance.
though
Berserker
it's a big
stance.
tree, it's the
Spell.
biggest tree out there. And
Arcane shot.
what
Cheap
makes it
shot.
is they
Spell.
brought
Will of the
in
Forsaken.
people that were just one
Intercept.
big
Mono
tree.
burn. Arcane shot.
They
Mono
didn't
burn.
think about building an
Mono burn.
ecosystem.
Tremor shot.
They didn't
Mono
think about
reflection.
where our
Action
view
down.
was going to go after they get
Mono
done
shield.
watching
Shadows.
Ninja
Earth
for the
shot.
day. I mean, it's been
Arcane
cranking
shot.
90s for 3 hours now, guys.
Slow
Maybe
down.
let's go see
Magic.
what else is
Infusion
on.
damage
And so
stance.
somebody goes to check what
Remove
else is on.
curse. Spell.
There's nothing else going
In
on the
range.
website. YouTube did this better with their
Remove
strategic
curse.
acquisitions
Swift
of
man.
Ninja
Shot.
Tatman and
Shield.
Dr. Lupo.
Swift men.
Because guess what happens?
Berserker
Courage
stance.
plays with Doc.
Abolish
Doc
poison.
plays with
Remove
the other
curse.
Doc, Dr. Lupo.
Flare.
Dr. Lupo plays with Tim, and Tim plays with Courage. And then Courage plays with Tim, and Dr. Lupo. And you see it's like a circle jerk, right?
Frost
And
Nova.
like that's how
Remove
you
curse.
keep the viewers in the ecosystem. But whenever you only have one person
Swift
in the
men.
ecosystem, then you're not really going
Blink.
to have any
Innervate
retention at
down.
all. And I
Set.
think that's what ends up happening with a lot of these
Frost
content
ward.
creators is
Countered.
that they move over to another platform and then they're not able to really retain an audience because you don't really retain like there are actually I mean there are some people right
Blink.
but there are many people
Cyclone.
and this is especially true with me
Success.
because I make a lot of
Spell
YouTube
steal.
videos. There are people that just watch me on Twitch, and then whenever I go offline, maybe they'll watch somebody else on
Ghost
Twitch, but the
strike.
odds are they'll probably just go
Kidney.
back to watching YouTube videos. That's it.
Prowl.
Or
Blink.
commenting on, like some other shit.
Berserker
or whatever.
stance.
So
Mage.
this is what happens
Shield.
to a lot of
Pounce.
people. But
Swift
many
men.
people,
Shadows.
this is not an average
Frost
viewer
Nova.
behavior on Twitch at a macro level.
Fairy
What
fire
happens
line.
at a
And slow
macro
down.
level
Vanish.
is
In range.
It's that
Bash.
a lot of
Silence.
people, they
Slow shot.
watch one streamer,
Hunters.
then they go
Remove
and they
curse.
watch
Fire.
another
Arcane
streamer,
shot.
and then
Counter
after that,
spell.
they
Death.
watch
Evasion.
another
Defend.
streamer.
Remove
So
curse.
what
Ghost
does
strike.
this do?
Disarm.
Affliction.
Evasion.
Well, it's
Berserker
very simple.
stance. Swift
What
men.
it does is
Counter.
it
Ice
creates
Kidney.
a cross-pollination
Affliction.
channels. It
Mono
creates
burns.
a community. It creates an
Mono
ecosystem.
burn.
So I think that
Psychic
it's very
entangling
smart.
roots.
How does this relate to
Fairy
Sykkuno? Some
fire.
people are like, why the fuck is he talking about this?
Remove
Because
curse. Death.
almost all of the people in
Mono
Sykkuno's
shield.
ecosystem are already on
Purge.
YouTube.
Frost ward.
So, like, YouTube would be
Cyclone.
smart to double
Success.
down on getting the offline TV,
Inner focus.
like
Focus
let's
down.
play
Curse.
Valorant together, that
Dispel
community.
magic.
That is the smart thing
Spell.
to do.
Free
That's
cyclone.
what they
Shot.
do. And
Divine
success on this
curse.
platform,
Frost
yes, in the
Nova.
best kind
Kidney.
of way.
Dispel
So
magic.
that's what really matters a lot. And so from as with Jordan Peterson, well, I don't know about that. Your credits
Aim
comes from me
shot.
too. I only watch you, and sometimes
Double
that's kind
down.
of Andy. If
Arcane
you're on
shot.
online and Rich isn't too, I leave the website and watch YouTube videos. I think there's a lot of people that are
Dispel
like that.
magic.
So, and
Blink.
Ray is basically a torchbearer for YouTube streaming. It was Ray and
Spell.
Courage who were some of the
Arcane
first
shot.
ones that moved over to YouTube. I remember this, and I think that YouTube, the reason why
Dispel
more people
magic.
are willing to move over to
Dispel
YouTube now
magic.
versus like Facebook or some of these
Ice
other platforms
entangling roots.
is because YouTube has
Cleanse.
actually shown success. Because a lot of times, like with
Arcane shot.
with like Ninja, for
Mage.
example, and like
Shield.
Shroud, etc.,
Blink.
like a lot of people
Aim
viewed their
shot.
move over to Mixer
Purge.
as a
Blink.
retirement plan, right?
Intercept. Icy veins
Where
down.
effectively
Arcane
now
shot.
I'm retired.
Aim
I just got to
shot.
pay for
Fire
a check
shot.
of $10 million. I don't
Death.
need to do
Nova.
anything. I don't need to try to innovate
Ice
my
block.
content. I don't need to worry about anything. I don't need to keep
Death
grinding as
Flash.
much as I
Berserker
used to.
stance.
All I have to do is just relax
Freezing
and
trap.
just put in my hours,
Dispel
and that's
magic.
it.
Swift men.
I've always thought that
Intimidating shout. Berserker
Twitch's plan
stance.
and idea with like, oh, you have to read a
Spell.
certain amount of hours streamed a month is fucking stupid.
Side
Like,
dispel
the amount
magic.
of time
Handy
that you
protection.
can-
Magic.
Quantity is not
Protection
quality.
down.
I would
Cyclone.
rather
Magic.
watch somebody do a
Inner
very
focus
good
down.
stream for
Affliction.
1 hour than somebody
Cyclone.
sit there and play a
Mono
boring
burn.
video game for
Mortal
8
coil.
hours. That's what I've always
Fear.
thought. I'd rather see
Enraged.
good content rather than
Mono
just the
burn.
same
Water
fucking repetitive
elemental.
bullshit.
Berserker cyclone.
So yeah, that's what I think. That definitely happened too.
Fear.
Yeah, 100%.
Infusion
YouTube
down.
audience feels less
Magic.
engaged
Fairy
than the Twitch
fire.
audience. Would you agree
Mono
with referring
shield.
to LSF and meme
Frost
making,
ward.
etc.? Yeah, and I think that's probably why people are moving over to YouTube. You've got a very good point there. Yes, they are much less invested. I saw a lot of people, they were criticizing and angry with Saikuno. They were like, you piece of shit,
Reward.
Saikuno. I can't
Nova.
believe you.
Stop.
You were emotional about something, and
Psychic
I
scream.
predicted that you were emotional about
Mage.
something that you weren't
Shields.
emotional about, and it turned out that I'm wrong. Well,
Growl.
I'm not wrong. You're an asshole for making me think something that was wrong. You know, that's it. People were upset. They were mad because there was they thought that Saikuno overplayed it, and they're trying to like dissect people's personality
Damn.
and like
Magic.
find
Magic.
the flaw in what
Dispel
they're saying
magic.
or what they're doing. Fuck this. Who the fuck
Cyclone.
wants to
Remove
watch that?
curse.
Meanwhile, on YouTube,
Remove
on
curse.
TikTok,
Dispel
remember
magic.
Addison Rae started selling that fucking, what was it, like a blue
Kidney.
light
Dispel
sunscreen
magic.
so you can put it on your
Hammer
face
of
while you're
justice.
gaming?
Mana
And,
shield.
you know,
Dispel
nobody
magic.
complained about that.
Sleeping.
It's
Mana
great.
burn.
So like, imagine
Cyclone.
being a content
Charge.
creator.
Mana
There's
burn.
1,000 fucking
Intercept. Mana
Purps
burn.
that are sitting there
Icy
breathing
down.
down their fucking
Cheap
neck,
shot.
waiting
Berserker
for you to
raise.
put through a
Engage.
mistake so they
Mana
can
burn.
hyperanalyze it
Hunter's
and
mark.
then
Self-reflection.
cross and
Slow shot.
analyze it
Fairy
with
fire.
your other
Arc and
7
strength.
mistakes over the
Mana
last
burn.
5 years,
Fear.
and then say, you know what?
Death.
This is a
Kidney.
shit person. I hate them. I hope they
Will of the
die.
Forsaken.
I'm so
Psychic
glad
scream.
whenever I go into their
Shield
stream
wall. Spell
and I realize
reflection.
I'm banned.
Reflection
Because
down.
you know why I
Toy
got
back.
banned?
In
It's
range.
because I
Intimidating
told the
shadow shot.
truth. Who the fuck wants to
Berserker
do that?
stance. Shield
Like,
wall
who,
down.
who wants to deal with this shit?
Elemental
Who
mastery.
would want to be like that? Yeah, so
Death.
like the Twitch
Silence.
audience being more invested.
Fear ward.
You know, like it's nice to have somebody that
Berserker
likes you,
stance.
but it's
Count
not
shard.
good to have a
Berserker
stalker.
stance.
So
Blade.
you can always have
Counter
too much
spell
of a good
damage
thing.
shot.
And I think some of
Berserker
the Twitch
stance.
audience,
Holy
especially
shot.
the terminally engaged
Inner
people in the
focus.
Twitch
Third
audience
ward down.
really do feel this way. The Jenny thing was
Mage.
borderline
Shield.
stalker
Curse.
shit. The Jenny thing was not
Affliction.
borderline stalker shit.
Intercept.
The Jenny thing was stalker shit. It was obviously stalker shit. To be honest with you,
Affliction.
these like it
Mortal
was
coil.
that's all it was.
Fear.
And so Jenny, I
Success.
mean, the thing is that you have people and they'll watch a stream like Jenny's stream and they will have like an emotional relationship with
Mana
the stream.
shield.
Magic.
You know what I mean? Like and like the parasocial,
Fear
whatever you
ward.
want to call it.
Stop.
Explain the lore, please.
Damage
Basically,
stance.
what is
Cold
the
snap.
biggest drama
Berserker
that a girl
stance.
can have
Water elemental.
online? What is the biggest drama?
Poly. Defense stance.
Psychic
Rounding.
scream.
Remove
Disarm.
curse.
That's
Berserker
right.
stance. Intercept.
That's right.
Spell.
Remove
That
curse.
is the. I mean, she can
Counter.
scam kids,
Sap.
sell fake
Blink.
cryptocurrency,
Fear ward.
Frost Nova.
view bot,
Berserker
do
range.
anything that
Cheap
she
shot.
wants.
Defense stance.
But don't you
Spell reflection.
fucking dare
Reveal
get
your
a
down.
boyfriend. Because people
Kidney.
can watch and they can have this, you know, fucking parasocial girlfriend experience. But whenever the guy is on the camera and it's like in their mind,
Charge.
it's like they're,
Berserker
every
stance.
second that they spend watching a stream is like they're self-cucking
Berserker
themselves
stance.
on a
Mage.
daily,
Mana shield.
hourly, minute
Frost ward.
basis.
Spell reflection.
So they
Damn.
can't deal with it. They
Magic.
get
Down.
upset. This is their waifu.
Shield
How the
blink.
fuck did this guy get
Intimidating
her?
shout.
This isn't fair. He doesn't treat her right. She would be way better off with me. Why is she talking to him?
Down.
He's a loser. Not
Fairy
like
fire.
me. I'm not a loser. Wow.
Shield bash.
And this is what happens. We riot. Yes, exactly. Yeah, she's our girlfriend.
Cheap
What's wrong
shot.
with you? Don't take her away from us. So this is what
Frost
happens.
Nova.
Kidney.
No, the thing is that I understand that, like, I present these
Earth shot.
problems in a very raw way. I don't sugarcoat this shit. I don't go and think, oh, well, you know, this might upset somebody if I say it this way. I hope it does. Because that means that you were thinking about it. That means that it's fucking real. Because I think this is 100% what happens.
Defense stance. Fire.
So
Kidney.
listen, that was specific. Listen, I've seen it happen with so many girls. I really have. And it's not, the thing is, incel mindset, cringe. No, it's the opposite. You see what I'm saying is that I think they're the ones that are cringe, and I think that's why you have people moving over to these other platforms, because they have a less engaged audience with their personal life, and they can live outside of the stream without having that level of pressure on them. I think that that's the
Bomb.
whole point. That's where I'm getting to. That's the whole thing that I'm
Arcane
saying. Is that
shot.
a lot of other platforms have
Affliction.
much less parasocial
Slow
audiences.
shot.
Absolutely. To be fair,
Hunter's
those
mark.
people should be removed from their communities. Yeah, but like,
Fear.
what happens whenever
Fairy
that's not in the
fire.
community? You see what I'm saying? Like,
Affliction.
do you see kind of like,
Arcane
yes,
shot.
it sounds like a
Entangling
great
roots.
idea. You'll like Ludwig's
Mortal
take then.
coil.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
Fear.
I agree with it. Yeah,
Slow
yeah,
shot.
nice, exactly. And no audience, 90% of subs
Arcane
gone. Have
shot.
any incels
Inner
get mad
focus
at me?
down.
So basically,
Shadow fiend.
the difference
Dispel
between
magic.
incels getting
Damn.
mad at me and
Monoburn.
JWs getting
Berserker
mad at me
stance.
is about
Will of
30
the
seconds.
Forsaken. Freedom.
In my
Berserker
stream.
stance.
Like, that's about how long it
Ice
takes for like
Collins.
one group to be like
Berserker
true,
stance.
and then the other group to be like true, and like that's basically it. And yes, the immersion is ruined, exactly. And so
Damage
what the hell will we do?
Sixth
Yeah,
Sense.
sure. If I get
Cloak of
married, whatever.
Shadows.
Anyway, what I'm trying to get out of here, I'm just
Arcane
kind of
shot.
talking and
Entangling
rambling at this
roots.
point. Well, what I mean is that obviously a lot of people
Ice magic. Down.
that lifestyle
Slow
is very
shot.
exhausting. It's very
Remove
stressful
curse.
for
Arcane
them.
shot.
I think that there are very few people out
Remove
there
hunters.
who like
Affliction.
having that much attention on them all the time and having to live their life in a certain
Remove
way.
curse. Arcane shot. Charge.
Like,
Berserker
for me,
stance.
it can be exhausting, but it's not exhausting because of that. It's just I don't like people talking to me a lot, and so I need to take a break because I'm just tired of people talking to me. I don't want anybody to talk to me anymore. Right? I just want to relax. And I think you're going to see a lot more burnout with stuff like that because people just don't want to deal with it. That's all there is to it. Belle Delphine.
Berserker stance.
Belle Delphine was different. I think
Counterspell.
Sunny made a really good video about that.
Presence of
whenever we
mind.
watched it. I
Curse.
think he pretty much summed up everything just about right, man. So yeah, I mean, in general, we can go
Damage
back and
stance.
talk about this a million fucking times. But what I'm saying is that I think that YouTube. I think YouTube
Frost Nova.
has already had
Psychic
success
Scream.
cases of people
Death
going
Wish
over
down.
the platform and growing, so it makes people much more willing to try it out. But I think that YouTube is not really going to be a competitor with Twitch
Blink.
until
Purify
YouTube
in range.
is able to attract people without paying them money. I think that's what it really comes down to.
Stop.
You seen the Dr. Disrespect latest tweet? What did Doc say? Let me read out what Doc said. Let's see. Dr. Disrespect. I had to unfollow YouTube Gaming. They don't support us one bit. Why would I support them? Ha ha ha. Such a phony industry I'm in. Well, I mean,
Damage stance.
I feel like you never really know
Mage.
what's
Shield.
Dr. Disrespect and what's what's not. So it's hard
Psychic
for me really
Scream.
to say. I think if Dr. Disrespect is talking about the discoverability and like being able to find streams, I think that he's 100% right. I think that YouTube somehow is even worse than Twitch. I can't believe this, but it's true. YouTube is somehow even worse. I don't know why, but I do think that
Damage
YouTube
stance.
will be
Magic.
hopefully less
Charge.
of an issue
Berserker
over time,
stance.
right? Like
Intercept.
I think they'll
Mage.
fix it
Shield.
slower, but it'll
Damage
probably happen
stance.
eventually. Did you get the Shum guide I sent you?
Charge.
No, sorry,
Berserker
Doc. I'm
stance.
still waiting for it to show up in the mail. He's talking about how he doesn't get a
Defense
contract from
stance.
YouTube,
Berserker
but forgets he has
stance.
nowhere to go.
Bulk
Well, the
intimidating
thing
show.
is, like,
Spell steal.
the
Blink.
YouTube gaming,
Spell steal.
here's why. So
Intercept.
if I was YouTube gaming, I probably wouldn't give Doc a contract either.
Spelling.
So like there's a
Frost
number
Nova.
of reasons why I wouldn't give
Mage.
Doc a contract.
Shield.
I think
Countered.
the main reason why I wouldn't give Doc a
Sprint.
contract is because I don't know what happened with Doc and
Kidney.
Twitch.
Spell.
Doc got randomly banned in one of the weirdest
Counterspell.
things
Arcane
that we
Twin.
have.
Icy
There's like a
Veins.
million levels of
Cloak
NDAs
of
about,
Shadows.
and somehow we still don't know what happened. That it's like if would you want to?
Icy
Like
down.
it's too
Down.
controversial. I mean, no. I don't think Dr. Disrespect is
Inner
controversial
focus.
at all.
Focus down.
I think obviously he can be a little bit edgy,
Cheap
but no,
shot.
he's not controversial in any regard.
Ghost strike.
So you just abandon him? Well, there's also like, it's not just that. Like
Blind.
it's a confluence of things. The other thing is that the Doc
Psychic scream. Nature's swiftness.
he can't go to
Earth
Twitch.
elemental.
There's no other competitor. Why? It's like Twitch wasn't offering people big contracts to
Death.
stay and stream on Twitch until Mixer started doing the same thing. So why would somebody spend a bunch of money on something that they already have? It's just that simple.
Monoburn.
You see kind of what I'm saying? Is like, why would you ever even do that? What's the purpose of this? What are you gaining with this? And probably some Illuminati
Psychic
shit.
scream.
I think that it had nothing to do with anything, any of the Shung Guide or Illuminati stuff or whatever. Did you see Rumble video replying to last tweet? No, I haven't seen that. Do you think it'd be beneficial for YouTube to split videos live
Psychic
and streaming?
scream.
I think there'd be other ways for them to do it that would be much better. Yeah, I think so. Someone wants to stream now. Do you think it should
Master
serve
Dispel
Twitch
magic.
or YouTube? Neither. Make YouTube
Inner
videos.
focus
Streams
down.
at the very beginning are very hard to discover, and I think also streams are, if you don't have an audience to stream to, it becomes much harder to
Death.
stream. because you don't have anybody to bounce things off of. Like for me, this was never a problem because number one, my first stream ever, I had 200
Elemental
viewers.
Mastery.
Number one. Number
Earth
two,
Shock.
I had Zach and McConnell and like all of my friends that I would just like hang out with on stream even back then. I was basically chilling with the
Earthbind.
boys and people would just come into chat and it was not a big deal. That's huge. Yeah, it absolutely is huge. Because like also you have like if you
Earth
try to
Shock.
interact with people and there's only like
Tremor.
1 or 2 or 3 people on the chat,
Grounding.
some people might not even like that. Some viewers, they just want to sit back and relax. They don't want to talk and chat or anything like that. They just want to sit there and watch.
Dispel magic. Earth shock. Dispel magic. Dispel magic. Earth shock. Will of the Forsaken. Dispel magic. Dispel magic.
You got my attention. Off with you.
Ishnu Allah, Goddess watch over you.
Damage stance. Berserker stance. Berserker stance. Charge. Shield. Frost Nova. Berserker stance. Blink. Damage stance. Berserker range. Ice block. Stun. Battle intimidating shout. Intercept. Mace stun. Death. Battle master down. Seal crusader. Water element. Freedom. Holy shot. Berserker stance. Damage stance. Seal command. Intimidating shout. Affliction. Success. Seal blood. Affliction. Holy shock. Pound. Charge. Berserker stance. Berserker sweeping stance. Intercept. Intercept. Holy shock. Intercept. Fear. Dash. Growl. Seal commands. Seal blood. Freedom. Stealth. Cheap shot. Ghost strike. Intimidating seal shot. Purge. Purge. Damage stance. Earth the Forsaken. Holy grounding. Shock. Purge. 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 Earth shock. Mortal coil. Sweeping death strikes. Wish. Shaman rage. Earth bind. Damage stance. Berserker rage. Growl. Pounce. Purge. Hemorrhage. Forbearance down. Death wish down. Grounding. Shaman rage down. Seal command. Hemorrhage. Justice. Seal blood. Holy shock. Seal blood. Divine shield. Judge. Seal justice. Cleanse. Holy shock. Bubble down. Cleanse. Frenzied regen. Seal justice. Cleanse. Seal crusader. Judge. Seal cleanse. Righteous. Seal crusader. Hunter's mark. Hunter's mark. Freedom. Wyvern. Holy shock. Holy shock. Seal command. Seal blood. Judge. Seal blood. Forbearance down. Slow shot. Repentance. Berserker stance. Shot. Arcane shot. Damage stance. Slow shot. Arcane shot. Arcane torrent. Charge. Berserker stance. Arcane shot. Slow shot. Berserker range. Earth shock. Grounding shot. Tremor. Berserker stance. Berserker stance. Frost Nova. Damage stance. Blink. Charge. Berserker stance. Shield. Berserker stance. Shock. Freedom. Damage stance. Seal command. Berserker range. Seal blood. Judge. Hand of protection. Protection down. Charge. Forbearance down. Psychic forbearance down. Affliction. Berserker stance. Defend stance. Berserker stance. Fear. Success. Mace intercept. Seal crusader. Slow shot. Judge. Hemorrhage. Mace stun. Holy shock. Divine illumination. Affliction. Bash. Cleanse. Battle Berserker stance. Holy shock. Holy shock.
Affliction.
Cure poison. Arcane shot. Battle master down. Holy Berserker stance. Holy shock. Damage stance. Seal blood. Berserker stance. Arcane shot. Intercept. Berserker rage. Seal command. Berserker stance. Seal blood. Water elemental. Berserker arcane shot. Berserker rage. Hunter's mark. Arcane shot. Arcane shot. Intercept. Hunter's mark. Charge.
Affliction.
Berserker bubble stance. Arcane shot. Holy arcane shot. Hunter's mark. Wyvern sting. Cleanse. Intercept. Icy veins down. Intervene. Defense stance. Repentance. Fairy fire. Berserker stance. Slow shot. Cleanse.
Affliction.
Intercept.
Berserker
Hunter's
stance.
shot.
Affliction.
Damage stance. Arcane shot.
Freedom.
Forbearance down. Bash. Shadow fiend. Barkskin.
Scatter shot.
Intimidating
Charge.
shout. Berserker stance.
Cleanse.
Intercept. Freedom. Arcane shot. Slow shot.
Affliction.
Fairy fire.
Damage stance.
Intercept. Intimidating shout. Mace Hunter's charge. Arcane shot. Berserker intercept.
Affliction.
Intercept. Holy
Mark.
shock.
Affliction.
Arcane
Cleanse.
slow shot. Arcane
Defense
shot. Stance. Intervene. Hunter's mark. Defense stance.
Affliction.
Slow shot.
Psychic
Berserker
scream.
stance. Intervene. Defense
Disarm.
stance. Berserker stance.
Affliction.
Pounce. Countered.
Disarm.
Shot.
Shield.
Mace stun.
Success.
Damage stance. Intercept. Enrage. Bash.
Success.
Berserker
Cyclone.
stance.
Fear.
Berserker stance.
Success. Affliction.
Arcane
Shock.
shot. Frost nova. Bubble down.
Affliction.
Holy shock. Cleanse. Slow shot.
Garrote silence.
Cleanse. Hunter's mark. Blink. Kidney. Damage stance. Arcane shot. Hunter's mark. Intercept. Blink. Berserker stance. Damage stance. Holy shock. Charge. Cleanse. Damage stance. Forbearance down.
Affliction.
Fairy fire. Arcane shot. Berserker
Wyvern
stance. Psychic scream. Arcane
Berserker
shot.
stance.
Slow shot.
Blink.
Prowl. Damage
Affliction.
charge. Stealth. Frost nova. Fairy fire.
Fear.
Arcane
Defense
shot.
stance.
Arcane
Battle
shot.
master. Affliction.
Countered. Rapid fire. Arcane shot. Elemental. Hunter's
Blink.
mark.
Damage
Cheap shot.
stance.
Arcane shot.
Scatter
Earth
shot.
Affliction. Holy shot. Battle master down. Arcane shot. Slow shot. Hunter's mark. Arcane shot. Intercept. Holy shock.
Innervate.
Arcane shot. Seal Crusader. Hunter's mark. Slow shot.
Hand
Arcane
damage
shot.
stance.
Arcane shot. Berserker stance. Cleanse. Defense stance. Arcane
Cleanse.
shot. Hunter's mark. Charge. Berserker stance. Prowl. Damage stance.
Affliction. Affliction.
Frenzied regen.
Affliction. Affliction.
Mage. Shield. Damage stance. Charge.
Water
Icy
elemental.
veins. Charge. Charge.
Berserker stance.
Berserker
Sweeping
range.
strikes.
Death wish. Berserker stance. Psychic
Frost
scream.
Nova.
Intercept.
Affliction.
Mace stun. Intercept. Death wish down. Icy veins down.
Now we're doing a proper full review of the $5,000 Alienware R13. If you've ever wondered how important thermals are exactly in a computer, this is a perfect example of it, because in this chart, just look at it. Look what Dell does to the 12900KF. They've effectively turned it into a 12700KF. So we're off to a great start, because the Alienware R13 has taken a $570 very good, very high-end CPU and turned it into one that's a $340 CPU. Still good, but that's hugely wasteful. So we're going to be talking about that. We'll also be talking about Dell's Cryotech cooling. Except,
King's honor, friend. Light
not that we'd
blessing.
know, but there's no cryo anything in it. It's just water. Let's get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermal Grizzly. Thermal Grizzly's Hydronaut and Cryonaut thermal pastes are high-performing thermal interfaces for use on CPUs and GPUs. You can bring an old card back to peak performance by repasting it and doing preventative maintenance, and Thermal Grizzly's Hydronaut is ideal for water cooling and air cooling for new and old cards alike. Cryonaut paste is one of the top performing pastes for extreme overclocking with CPUs and GPUs, and has been used in several world record scoring machines. Learn more at the link in the description below. So we've shown in the recent past now with main gear, with Skytech, with ABS, it is possible to buy a pre-built gaming computer that's actually good. You don't have to DIY. Obviously, we encourage that. That's what our channel's all about. But if you're the type of person who really just wants to buy the computer, be done with it, or if you are the expert and your friends or your family are asking you what to buy and you don't want to become their tech support, everyone who works here has been through that, then a pre-built computer also makes sense. Our goal is to find one that doesn't suck. This one does not meet that goal. The Alienware computer at $5 grand is offensively bad. It is insane. It's actually incomprehensible. I can't think of the words for it. For how Dell has managed to take such high-end parts as an RTX 3090 and an i9 12900KF. Those are the two core components in here, and they have dunked on the performance of those two components just by building a computer poorly. Dell doesn't even make the silicon. Dell doesn't make the CPU. It doesn't make the GPU. All it has to do is build the computer correctly and have it function well at the end of it. So the hard part has been done by other companies. And Dell's method of assembly, which is to use very slow DDR5 4400 memory,
Damn,
or DDR5
magic,
3600.
damn, magic.
Yes, that is actually a thing that is manufactured. Didn't know it went that low. Those are your two memory options. They put a 120 mil
Charge, charge.
cooler on there that is
Berserker
shoved
stance.
into the
Magic.
cooler
Charge.
and
Berserker
stuck behind
stance.
three layers
Intercept.
of
Berserker range.
plastic and glass
Hunter's
for
mark.
drilling.
Sweeping
We
strike.
talk about all
Bubbling
the
down.
features of
Repentant.
this
Earth
teardown
bomb.
video.
Intimidating
It is
shout.
fascinating how this is assembled.
Seal
Genuinely,
command.
this is a
Hunter's
real
seal
complex.
blood.
The
Slow
mechanical
shot.
engineering
Bearing
of it
down.
is
Mortar coil.
masterful and brilliant, and it is applied in the most inept, asinine way possible.
Terror. Hunter's mark. Death wish down.
But
Shane
in this
range.
system alone,
Arcane shot.
there is
Shadow
a
vanish.
proprietary, meaning unusable
Jacob
in
shot.
any
Magic.
other
Berserker
circumstance
stance.
except for
Slowed
Dell's
down.
components. Another Dell
Berserker's
component,
magic. Earth shot. And rage down.
proprietary case,
Damage stance.
cooler,
Damn,
because not only
magic.
are the tubes oddly short, but also it mounts to the case. There's instead of using a backplate, which is what Intel uses, there's a proprietary motherboard where the I/O comes out the front. That way, if you ever have damage or a dead port, you have to replace the entire motherboard and not just a PCB daughter board in the front panel. And there's a proprietary power supply, so up to 4 units, because the power supply is not ATX 12VO. It's not quite the right size for that, and the pinouts are different, despite it also being a 10-pin. The rest of the components, fortunately, can be salvaged. That leaves you with the CPU. The video card is actually not bad by Dell standards. We tested it previously. It did pretty well. And then the RAM is technically salvageable, but not particularly good. Enough of that. We need to prove why this deserves a little bit of exaggeration and hyperbole, because the benchmarks and the objective data really back up the subjective conclusions on this one. Let's get started with some throttling numbers for performance. First up is Chromium Code Compile, where we're using the Chromium code base and measuring the time required to compile it in minutes. Lower is better. The normal 12900K takes 48.6 minutes to compile this code when stopped. With the 12700K, which has fewer E-cores and slower clocks, it takes 56.5 minutes to complete the same compile. As a reminder, the KF and the K SKUs, they're all the same other than the IGP, which is irrelevant. The Alienware R13 takes an embarrassing 56 minutes to compile the same code base with the same methodology. So Dell has chopped off 16% of its performance potential because of its own thermal and power limits. Dell has demoted its i9 12900KF it sold us to the same class of performance as a 12700K. Blender cycles, the 12900K finishes the GM logo render in 9.4 minutes with the 12700K taking 11.5 minutes. The Alienware R13 requires about 11 minutes for the same render. Meaning that Dell is incinerating a possible extra 14% performance for nothing. So much for the Cryotech TM. Now, this doesn't always happen in short tests like 7 compression. The test can complete within the 56-second window, and the results end up looking the same as a normal 12900K in those instances. So Dell can have normal performance, but only if your work or your game lasts under 1 minute. This is a horrible thermal solution for the hottest CPU and GPU on the market right now for desktop. It advertises its new custom-made, ultra-short-tubed, closed-loop liquid cooler as, quote, the next step in the evolution of cooling. Calling it Cryotech. Saying it offers gamers significant thermal advantages. Now, not that we'd know, but we're pretty sure that the word cryo doesn't just mean water mixed with propylene glycol.
Earthbind.
Not that we'd know.
Berserker stands.
Anyway, Dell goes on to brag about how its Cryotech TM cooler, quote, features a 120 by 120 by 30 millimeter heat exchanger and a pump that operates at 2800 RPM. As if that's supposed to impress us.
Earthbind.
Quote, the heat exchanger is 11% higher than what's available on our standard liquid cooling unit, while the pump's duty cycle is 6% higher, also compared to standard liquid cooling. So here's what we have to say about all that. The RPM number, or at least the boasting of it being a little bit higher, is irrelevant. And the radiator is a standard size. In fact, it is the smallest mass-produced size on the market, and yet Dell has somehow gone in with the intent of trying to make it sound larger than it is in reality. A 120 mil radiator is not special or large in any way whatsoever, and the 120 millimeter mounted fan is attached ultimately to an 80 millimeter hole, which is also problematic. As for the RPM number, so pump RPM does impact performance a little bit, especially in large machines where the water has to move around quickly. Start to heat up a little bit. We've actually seen impacts there. In this loop, what they're doing is they're bragging about a 6% higher RPM. That is within standard manufacturing variants for an Asetek liquid cooler, which is what this is. This is a rebranded Asetek liquid cooler, and their pump RPM manufacturing variants is plus or minus 10%. So Dell is claiming to be 6% higher. Okay, now you move the plus or minus 10%, maybe a little bit higher up the stack, sure, but it's still within the original variants functionally. And even if at the high end you end up with an extra couple percent on the pump RPM, it doesn't matter here. With a full system workload, the maximum CPU core temperature quickly spiked to 96 degrees Celsius and was continuing to rise when Dell's custom 56-second PL2 window ended and the CPU's power limit was reduced to 210 watts from the original 240 watts. Wow, that's great cooling with the Cryotech TM cooler.
Arcane
Only
shot.
96 degrees.
Berserker stance.
4 degrees below.
Impact.
Extreme
Hunter's
thermal
mark.
throttling.
Damage
Awesome.
stance.
But the default behavior for the 12900K is
Intercept.
actually
Berserker
infinite turbo.
stance.
Except the R13's cooler is insufficient and cannot
Arcane
maintain
shot.
the
Charge.
12900K's
Shot.
official Intel
Damage
guidance and
justice.
spec.
Berserker
So Dell
stance.
reduced the power limit from
Defense
infinity,
stance. Seal
which again is how
command.
it's supposed to be shipped, to 56
Hunter's
seconds.
mark.
That is quite the
Berserker
reduction
stance.
in
Seal
time.
arcane shot.
Infinity is a
Charge.
very long time.
Damage
56
stance.
seconds is not a very long time, scientifically
Charge.
speaking. The reported TL1
Link.
limit then
Intercept.
dropped
Berserker
linearly from
stance.
210 watts down to 160 watts, where it remained for the duration of the test. The CPU is hard throttling and dropping clocks even with the revolutionary Cryotech TM cooler with a 2800 RPM pump and an 11% larger
Berserker
heater
stance.
aka a radiator,
Intercept.
than what's on their standard liquid cooler.
Vampiric embrace.
Don't want to know what's the standard one then.
Earth
So with the
bind.
CPU hard throttling and
Defense
dropping
stance.
clocks, it effectively
Death
pushes
berserker
the
stance.
classic
Berserker
down
stance.
from the 12900KF you actually bought to something far cheaper.
Berserker stance.
We'll look at those numbers in a moment.
Seal justice.
The 160 watt
Judge.
number brought temperatures
Death
down
wish
to a
down.
steady state
Seal
87 degrees
command.
Celsius, which is
Seal
still
blood.
unacceptable, especially seeing as 160 watts is close to the power we'd expect to be
Berserker
pulled
wings.
by an i7
Damage stance.
11700K,
Berserker stance.
one generation older and an entire step down. Certainly not an i9 from the 12th gen. Dell basically pre-programmed power throttling for the CPU because it knew it would thermal throttle otherwise. This liquid cooler is incapable of cooling the 12900KF at a sustained 241 watt power limit, and also the 210 watt power limit, basically the 160 watt one as well. Removing the front panel reduced the peak CPU temperature down to 94 degrees and steady state down to 77 from 87 previously. The closed-off case design is a major obstacle in addition to the undersized CPU cooler. The fact that the CPU's power limit has to be adjusted down to pretty close to 12600K is just outright embarrassing. As you saw earlier in Chromium Code Compile and in some other tests, it ends up being pretty close to 12700K's performance. Still a good CPU, but you're really overspending on it. So let's see what all of this does for the frequency behavior. The i9 12900K starts out at about 4760 megahertz for the performance cores. This is where it would stay if Dell had cooled the system properly. But instead, it hard power throttles to keep thermals from running away. The result is a fall to 4200 megahertz, which is a 560 megahertz reduction just because they couldn't be bothered to cool the system properly and implemented their own custom power throttles. That loss of frequency is huge, and it demotes the i9 12900K to lower performance levels that we'll get to soon. The E-cores also drop, falling from 3900 megahertz to 3300 megahertz. That's another 600 megahertz reduction, just like in the P-core. Alienware has used its extraterrestrial technology to transmorgify the 12900K into basically the behaviors of something like an i7. This is all just unbelievably wasteful. Dell is putting these extremely high-end, good, expensive components into a system that underperforms. It's sad that some customers may not even realize that they bought high-end parts only to be throttle blocked anyway. And Dell does all of this talk these days about how environmentally friendly it is, which would be awesome. We are hugely in support of that. We've given a lot of money to charities for e-waste because Dell contributes to it so much, and its competitors. But what we're seeing here is complete ignorance and Dell contradicting itself, where it's bringing down the performance of an otherwise high-end CPU, which is wasteful. Now for the GPU. The R13's case is the same basic Aurora design that we saw with the R10. The square interior of the case is tilted at an angle for aesthetic reasons, creating wasted space at the corners and making the inside of the chassis small relative to the actual size of the system externally. The GPU, in particular, has 1.5 centimeters of clearance for its fans at best. This doesn't bode well for thermals. It's going to be similar to running an air-cooled GPU smashed up against the glass. The front panel has 3 layers of plexi, plastic, and metal in front of the front fans. Plus, there's a large PCB housing LEDs and the power button, yet there's no filtration. GPU thermals relied heavily on increased fan speeds to keep the temperatures down. With the front panel on, we saw a steady state temperature of 72 degrees Celsius after an initial bump up to 74 degrees before the fans compensated. It seems like Dell's 3090 keeps to a maximum 70% duty cycle when below 75 degrees Celsius. But as we'll see in a moment, the fans are allowed to ramp much higher once that threshold is passed. With the front panel off, the initial temperature bump happened to hit 75 degrees through normal variance. That slight difference triggered an exaggerated fan ramp up to 87% or 3,600 RPM and a period of hysteresis before settling at about 70% at 71 degrees. It's almost the exact same as the stock test, but with some excursions above that speed. The problem here isn't the fan ramp. It's that the container is constructed in such a way that high fan speeds are necessary and therefore high noise to keep temperatures safe. Although the BIOS should be programmed in a way ideal, where there's a step somewhere between 70% and 87% speed, which is how noisy is. As for noise, the R13 is loud. You can hear the pump noise constantly. There's coil whine during gaming, and the mechanical hard drive adds that mid-2000s gateway vibe. Here's some sound.
Recklessness down, protection down, cleanse, arcane shot, very far, arcane shot, swiftness, intercept, arcane shot, freedom, death wish down, nature's rage down, fear, intercept, berserker stance, arcane shot, death wish
The
down,
whine is mostly coming from the motherfucker around, but this is the main problem. This thing is loud in a lot of ways. As for objective noise, idle is about 31.5 dBA in a 426, but the R13 blasts to 49.7 dBA peak to try and compensate for thermals with limited access to air and cooling. It settles about 45.5 after the boost expiration, so this is just poor thermal and acoustic design. Gaming is short for this one just because testing a $5,000 pre-built against a bunch of $1,500 pre-builts is pointless. It's obviously going to be better. That's why we tested it versus a properly assembled 12900K and RTX 3090 using the stock guidance instead. It's the same config, it's just that we built it to the standard spec instead of the R13s. In Cyberpunk, with our test settings at 1080p, we saw the CPU frequency limitation in full effect. In this
Berserker
CPU
stance,
test, you'll notice that average FPS is not the same, but the DIY system pulls ahead at 0.1% lows. This indicates better frame time consistency and pacing thanks to the frequency. At 4K, it's GPU bound and they run about the same for performance. As we showed before, Dell gets credit for building an RTX 3090 that's actually okay. That shows here. So good job on that part, Dell. Now just do that for everything else, please. In Rainbow Six Siege at 1080p, the CPU bind illustrates the R13 falling behind, allowing a 5% lead to the more standard approach. We'll stop the gaming test here since we're not recommending the system on any grounds anyway, but we wanted to give you a quick look at the sense of things. For power consumption, the R13 contains a CPU and a GPU that both have reputations for extremely high power consumption, but also high performance. That does, however, indicate that they are less efficient than their lower-end counterparts. Starting with our extended blender test, the immediate full system power draw was 394 watts, well beyond the already inefficient 10700F based Aegis R's power draw of 275 watts. Even with the significant reduction in the power limit following the boost period, the R13 only came down to 292 watts average. This is still higher than the peak power draw of any other system on this chart, and that's, again, entirely because of the components. It's not necessarily a bad thing to draw a lot of power for high-powered parts, as long as the conversion to performance is at least somewhat efficient in terms of perf per watt. Based on what we saw in the torture test, we would expect the full system power draw to level out at 260 watts over a long period of time. Gaming tests add the power-hungry RTX 3090 to the mix, with the Rainbow Six Siege testing averaging 546 watts. That's a lot higher than the next entry on the chart, especially given that level of performance that the Skytech Chronos offers for 350 watts. Cyberpunk was significantly worse, with the R13 averaging 641 watts due to a shifting bottleneck. In contrast, the Main Gear Vibe, for example, is a mid to high-end gaming system that pulls 352 watts on the same test. It's also lower end, though, in terms of the GPU with the 3060 Ti. All of that said, the R13's efficiency, so the performance per watt consumed, is overall poor relative to the performance offered compared to a properly built 3090 plus 12900K system. As for peripherals, the default option included a mouse and keyboard, and opting out of both would have saved us a total of $10. Wow, thanks, those are quite the quality components. That said, we also don't think they're worth even $10 after having used them. We'd recommend opting out. You'll reduce the waste. You'll probably just buy better components anyway, especially if you're spending $5 grand on an Alienware gaming PC. Alienware branded peripherals, like their mechanical keyboards and headsets, can also be added to the order as separate items. They claim they offer a discount as well. Our one deviation from the default options was to opt out of Dell's perennial bullshit scam, the auto-renewing subscription support fee. they've gone back and forth on this feature. It changed after our first Alienware review and rant about the subscription warranty support, and it changed between the time we placed our order for this PC and the time of the writing. It will probably change once again by the time we publish. The page layout was a nightmare when we ordered. Seriously, watch as we scroll down past the easily comprehensible hardware options to the warranty and support section. It should not take more than 5 seconds to figure out how to not pay for this. As of this writing, the $10 per month premium tier can no longer be selected, and the cheapest option is a one-time payment for the premium tier. The Alienware product page only shows prices plus or minus relative to the sticker price, so it's unclear whether the cheapest mandatory support tier is actually free or not. And that's not a mistake. This is intentionally confusing to trick you into buying an additional warranty. You already have a warranty for buying the computer. It's something they offer. This is just extra. Time for BIOS and software. We noticed that absolute tracking software was enabled by default in BIOS, although it's also listed as deactivated. The description checks every box you'd want for paranoia and even includes a tinfoil hat. For example, there's an option to ping a server on a regular basis. There's tracking the system. There's forcibly reinstalling the software from a module on the motherboard. That's one of the more concerning ones. Maybe
to the final patch and the content it will bring. So today we're going to cover the new noteworthy additions that will be released in Phase 5. This is a new zone located all the way north in the Eastern Kingdoms, and I'd say has 4 main things to think about: the Shattered Sun rep, the progression of the staging grounds, the Dungeon Magister's Terrace, and of course the Raid Sunwell Plateau. Let's start with the actual island event itself, as well as the rep. The two are pretty much tied together, because you may hear about some features in the patch, such as being able to buy epic gems for badges, but this won't be available right away, and this is assuming Blizzard will do a progressive event, which I think they will. Think of the event as, well, kind of like the AQ War effort light. Very light. Instead of somebody building a scepter and handing in materials, your server does dailies. Lots and lots of dailies. As more dailies are done, progress is made towards unlocking the next area, which, you guessed it, gives you even more dailies. And by the time everything is unlocked, there's something like 10 dailies here that you can do. At least it's easy gold and rep, I suppose. The event will start with just the Shattered Sun staging area, which has the reputation vendor and dailies. I'm going to be saying dailies a lot. The dailies themselves are pretty standard activities: go somewhere, kill stuff, collect things, so I'm not going to go over them specifically. As your server progresses, you will eventually unlock the Sun's Reach Sanctum, and just in case you're wondering how long it will take exactly to progress to the next hub, not very long. If it's just your server needs to have done X amount of dailies total, some servers are going to fly through it in no time at all, which is how I suspect it works, though there is no official data online on how many quests are needed or exactly how it's tracked. Retaking the Sanctum gives 2 new dailies, and now your server will begin progressing on unlocking the Armory. During this time, a quest to open a portal from Shatrath to the Isle and vice versa will become available. After retaking the Armory, wouldn't you believe it, 2 more daily quests become available. PvP vendors will also spawn. They sell Season 1 gear for Tier 4 tokens and Season 2 gear for either Tier 5 or 6 tokens, as well as off-pieces for the Sunwell tokens or badges. Now, we already have most of this in the game, to be honest. I'm expecting Blizzard to make Season 3 gear available for Tier 6 tokens, because that's what they've done with every set so far. A blacksmith will also spawn below with a new daily as well. After your server has progressed that, 2 more dailies will spawn, and she will become a vendor selling loads of new and very powerful badge gear. This stuff costs a ton of badges, but is a nice alternative addition to gearing options. Also, if you're raiding, you'll want to be doing this daily at least now and again for the weapon coatings that work in the Sunwell raid, though according to old Wowhead comments, they won't stack with Wind Fury. Once you progress the next stage via dailies, you will unlock Sun's Reach Harbour, which, guess what? No, it doesn't have any yeah, I'm joking, it does. Of course it does. 1 new daily. After your server has advanced this objective, an additional daily will become available, as well as an alchemy mats vendor, a reagent vendor, and the epic gem vendor. They also sell patterns, and the epic gems themselves cost 15 badges each. Expect epic gems to come down pretty fast in price once this happens. Despite everyone needing them for new gear, people are just getting badges thrown at them at the moment. Additionally, an NPC will spawn accepting gold to build a memorial, and once you are exalted with the Shattered Sun offensive, you can pay 1,000 gold for the title of the Shattered Sun. All that work you've done for them, and they still want 1,000 gold for for the title. What a bunch of scammers. Sometime later, after many more dailies, Kiru, a Naru, spawns and gives a zone-wide stamina and intellect buff, Kiru's Song of Victory. So that's the island progression. Not everything available day one, but should progress pretty fast. We do have big servers after all. Next up, the reputation. So you're already going to be getting a lot of it naturally just by questing and doing activities around the isle. What are the rewards though? Loads of gem designs for pretty much every combo you can think of, from friendly all the way up to exalted. Void Shatter for enchanters at Honored. This will turn one void crystal into 2 large prismatic shards, which needless to say are going to crash in price once this is available. Don't buy expensive large prismatic shards before the patch. A stamina and resilience head enchant at Revered for the PvP enthusiasts. Some new jewel crafter trinkets again at Revered. As far as I know, the melee one is quite good for rogues, an additional effective stealth level and loads of AP. New alchemist stones at Exalted, as well as a tabard of course. And finally various necks that have procs based upon whether you're also exalted with the Aldor or the Scryers. Pendant of Might gives Aldor a 200 attack power proc, and Scryers are Arcane Strike, which can crit for some damage. Pendant of Resolve gives 100 dodge rating for Aldor, and 100 expertise for Scryers, both procs last 10 seconds. Pendant of Restoration gives Aldor players bonus healing for 10 seconds, and Scryers a small instant heal. And finally, Pendant of Acumen gives Aldor 120 spell damage for 10 seconds, and Scryers a small damage proc. Aldor looks pretty much better across the board, to be honest. I guess there are various necks anyways from raid content that will be better. Speaking of raid content, we have the Sunwell, the final tier of TBC, very much seen back in the day as another really hard end of expansion raid. I've already done a full video on it if you want some info on its legacy and what to expect from it these days, which I will link, but here we're just going to go over the new stuff from it. Aside from the obvious things such as a load of this new gear, tier 6 tokens for boots, gloves and belts, and a legendary bow from Kill Jaden, there are also a few other noteworthy bits. The Sunwell has a lot of profession and trash drops. Some are BOP, some are BOE. Study of Advanced Smelting allows players to make hardened corium for 3 corium bars and 1 hardened adamantite bar. These are used a lot in jewel crafting and blacksmithing. Also, Primal Nethers and Might will see a return to being useful for Sunwell crafted gear. Expect more demand for both of these items. Finally, a new item drops within the Sunwell called Sun Motes. Again, these are used in item crafts. Think of them as like the new Heart of Darkness. Additionally, they can be used to transmute gear. This is a pretty interesting feature actually. It allows you to take a specific non-tier item and trade it in with a sun mote for another item of the same armor type and slot. That was kind of wordy, but it's easy to understand when you look at the vendor. It's a good alternative to just disenchanting everything if a certain item just keeps on dropping, I suppose. Let's end it off with a new dungeon, Magister's Terrace. I certainly have memories of how hard this place was, or maybe I was just bad. I played a Shadow Priest at the time and would mind control every single pack because CC felt mandatory and the mobs just did insane damage and had amazing spells. It was a lot of fun. There is a simple quest in there as well, giving you a look into the Sunwell with a nice panning cinematic. Also, does anyone else still have absolutely no idea who Anvina is? Either I just never paid attention or the game did a really bad job of explaining it. Anyways, do the quest, get an epic gem and a tune for the heroic version of the dungeon, the end boss of which is of course Kael'thas for the second time of the expansion. After all, Tempest Keep was merely a setback. The dungeon can drop an orb which changes your appearance into that of a Blood Elf for 5 minutes, and unlike other items like the Orb of Deception, it doesn't go in your trinket slot, so you can actually use it. Revolutionary. Kael'thas also drops a White Hawk Strider mount, which both Horde and Alliance can use, as well as a companion pet, the Phoenix Hatchling. One other thing to mention here is that the loot on Heroic is really good. Notably, Priestess Delrissa drops exceptionally powerful trinkets, Shard of Contempt in particular, as well as a new cloak enchant, Steelweave. Other than that, one final thing I remember about the Isle was if you are insane enough to go for the insane title in Wrath, is that the Murlocs around the shore are good for farming heavy junk boxes needed for the Ravenholt rep. Well, at least they were back in the day. Maybe we do have better methods now. And that's about everything in Phase 5 that I wanted to go over. If you think I missed anything big, please do drop it down below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Amber do something that you would call physically violent or an assault of Mr. Depp, correct?
Other than when I testified that she threw a water bottle or a plastic cup in his direction.
But that, you wouldn't consider that physically violent or an assault of him, correct?
Well, in California, it's assault if you go to attempt to swing or throw something at somebody, even if you don't hit them.
You've never seen Amber do something that you would call physically violent or an assault of Mr. Depp, correct?
Other than when I testified that she threw a water bottle or a plastic cup in his direction.
But that, you wouldn't consider that physically violent or an assault of him, correct?
Well, in California, it's assault if you go to attempt to swing or throw something at somebody, even if you don't hit them.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can only assume that Mr. Chu wrote that speech for an audience outside the court because it didn't really address my arguments. I'm going to focus on what our specific arguments are for the motion to strike, Your Honor. Mr. Chu spent almost 30 minutes of the court's time talking about the disputed evidence of physical abuse in this case, which Ms. Heard hasn't even put on her case, and I can tell you she's not the abuser, and if the case moves forward, she and her witnesses will put on even more evidence of the physical abuse she suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. But that's not the basis for our motion right now, Your Honor. He talks about how Mr. Depp had a sworn denial, and that should count. We read his testimony. He claims he didn't strike her. But again, that's not the basis for our motion. The basis for our motion is the clear and undisputed evidence of non-physical abuse. By his definitions, by his standards, by the standards of his expert, there is no dispute that Mr. Depp abused Amber. And therefore, if he did it even one time, there's no dispute that even under their theory of the case, the implication that they want the jury to draw from the article, which again, I'm not arguing for the purposes of today, because under the legal standard, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to waste the court's time with that. But even under their standard, the undisputed evidence is that Mr. Depp did commit abuse against Ms. Heard, and therefore that those first two statements were false. That's our argument on that. As to the headline, it's funny, Mr. Chu, we played 2 or 3 hours of an ACLU deposition. Now he says, well, that wasn't our witness. It was his witness, Your Honor. He just spent 10 minutes talking about what Mr. Doherty said, and Mr. Doherty testified that the Washington Post wrote the headline. That is the only evidence, Your Honor. I understand he says, well, Exhibit 1 has her name on it. Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them. But Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them. But Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't help them. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them.
Yeah, I also need to do the room cleaning stream. If you guys want to see what my room actually looks like, I'm going to show you. Give me a second. So this is what my room actually looks like. Okay. As you guys can see, I have a lot of stuff I need to get rid of. A lot of just bullshit over here. These are just plates with food. Let's see. That's about it. And like the crown, yeah, I've got that, so I can reach over there and do all that. So I'm looking to get a dumpster. No. I don't need a dumpster. I just need to get rid of some stuff. Throw it out the window. That's actually what I used to do. I used to, any furniture or anything I didn't like in my room, I just threw it all out the window.
Now, Dr. Curry testified
Oh,
that
here we
one
go.
test showed, quote, intentional exaggeration in the 98th percentile,
Yeah.
meaning that she engaged in extreme levels of exaggeration, end of quote.
Why'd
Do you
that
agree with
happen?
that?
I do not.
Why?
Because that test, the scale that she is referring to is it's called ATR. It's the atypical response scale. As I said, that combines rare symptoms and over-endorsed symptoms. It's very frequently elevated in people who have high levels of distress. And then importantly, on this test specifically, it says, do not use the percentile rank. It is in the manual, it is in italices, because the way that this test was normed, it was normed on people who have trauma. So it's what we call negatively skewed. That means it falls on the tail end of the continuum. It is not a normal curve where we would normally think
That's
of how
not
a
why.
percentile would work. So you would not use the percentile rank on this test.
It's because of the general versus specific questions.
Okay.
Because the reason why Dr. Curry brought that up originally was because Amber Heard did like, she passed all of the tests where you could easily predict what the outcome of pushing certain answers would be. But then whenever she was given a test where you were not able to easily predict the outcome, the difference was completely fucking different.
Let's move to the falsity of Ms. Heard's ever-evolving and ever-escalating
Look at her
chain
face.
of IPV and sexual assault.
She's so mad.
3 police officers, actually 4, testified unequivocally that Ms. Heard did not have a mark on her on the evening of May 21, 2016.
Ain't that something? This is
we have
live.
Ms. Heard's own admissions, admitting to hitting Mr. Depp, and her only contention was that she wasn't punching him, she was just hitting him. That
what a bitch.
On February 23rd, 2015, Ms. Heard threw and
Сейчас, как известно, Финляндия присоединяется к НАТО. Что вы думаете вообще по этому поводу?
Россия их ебали и будут ебать всех.
Финляндия планирует присоединиться к НАТО. Что думаете по этому поводу?
Я не возражаю.
Я не знаю, я вне политики.
Все равно.
Для России это плохо, для Финляндии это хорошо. Ну, там, смотря с какой стороны.
Ну, наверное, она имеет право.
Ничего не знаю об этом. Нет какого-то конкретного мнения. Не знаю, хорошо это или плохо. Не мне решать. Не знаю.
Я думаю, что все, кто сейчас кому-то хочет присоединяться, делают крайне неправильно, потому что любое, что угодно присоединение вправо-влево, это только обостряет.
Ничего такого не могу сказать. Единственное, что Калининград пострадает, потому что они могут и отрезать все пути, там у нас что, морской путь, по-моему, остается. Да, ну и вот останется кусочек.
К сожалению, теперь я понимаю, что я не права, но я политикой никогда не интересовалась.
Индифферентная Финляндия, независимое государство, и само решает, что ему делать.
Вообще не думаю. Ну, я просто аполитична.
Ну, я знаю официальную позицию России, что это не опасно, но я и не очень понимаю.
Ничего не думаю по этому поводу. Есть куда более важные темы для мышления, скажем так.
Финляндия присоединяется к НАТО. Что думаете по этому поводу?
Ну, в целом, я думаю, это суверенная страна, и ей вправе решать, что куда, кому и как присоединяться. Это ее выбор.
Я нет комментариев на тему НАТО, политики и присоединения к России.
Я думаю, что они этого не сделают.
Почему?
Ну, для них это не лучший вариант. Ну и вообще присоединяться сейчас к НАТО глупо. Просто и политически, и экономически, и идеологически глупо.
Да, безусловно, слышал. Я сам учусь на международных отношениях в МГИМО. И Финляндия, и Швеция заявляли, что, возможно, они планируют вступить в НАТО.
Да я в политике вообще как-то, меня это не касается лично меня, вот, поэтому я и не смотрю, и не думаю, и никакие анализы не провожу по этому поводу.
Думаю, что это правильное решение, и они стремятся обеспечить свою безопасность.
У меня нет какого-то прям точного какого-то мнения, но в целом я не против, потому что, ну, мне кажется, что Финляндия все-таки это как бы суверенное государство, они сами могут решать, что им делать, и, ну, как бы я не очень сильна, наверное, в политике, в принципе, и в понимании, да, насколько это опасно, и вообще, ну, как бы я не изучала этот вопрос с НАТО, и именно с точки зрения, что вот, да, наши власти все говорят, вот, НАТО, они на нас нападут, то есть я как бы не изучала с этой точки зрения, но я не вижу проблемы, я думаю, что если бы они хотели напасть, они бы уже давным-давно бы на нас напали.
Сейчас ситуация, когда вопрос стоит, кто слабый. Когда выяснится, кто первый, как говорится, свистнет, то там и прям от того уйдут и придут к сильному. Пока нет ясности, кто сильный до конца. Ну, по крайней мере, я думаю, что лучше быть в России.
А почему не к России присоединяться?
Наверное, потому что экономика плохая у России.
Ну а зачем им это может быть нужно?
Угрозы-то растут.
Чтобы как-то попробовать, не то чтобы остановить, но не знаю, может быть, ну, с точки зрения вот сдерживания какого-то возможной угрозы со стороны России. Но действительно это сложный вопрос, потому что я детально не изучала, в принципе, вот этот исторический момент с НАТО, поэтому мне сложно однозначно сказать.
И вообще, зачем Финляндии вступать в НАТО? Какой им смысл? Ну, наверное, безопасность, собственно, хотят как-то усилить. Пока на их территории нет каких-то военных действий, они все еще могут присоединиться и чуть больше себя, наверное, обезопасить за счет такого объединения с другими европейскими странами.
Понятия не имею, у них там своя политика, там свои какие-то взгляды на организацию своей, на международную деятельность. Это их дело, что они там хотят, я понятия не имею.
Финляндия — это суверенная страна, и ее жители в плане решать где-нибудь и так далее. Но это ни в коей степени не означает, что это не влияет на Россию. Поэтому интересы России тоже должны быть учтены в этом вопросе. И Финляндия это прекрасно понимала со времен окончания Второй мировой войны.
Я думаю, что они это делают из страха, мне так кажется.
А чего они боятся?
Ну, наверное, что агрессии с нашей стороны, со стороны России.
Ну, вообще, это может быть опасно для России, как думаете?
Нет.
Почему?
А с чего бы?
Честно, понятия не имею. Со всех сторон опасность. Там опасность, там опасность. Мы все равно на таком уровне находимся, как простые обыватели, которые никогда не узнают, что там правильно, что неправильно.
Ну, бомбы какие-нибудь на нас кинут, там подлетное время уменьшится.
Вот я так не считаю. По ощущениям, ну, учитывая, насколько сейчас НАТО накалена обстановка, наверное, ничего там положительного вряд ли что-то это светит, мне кажется.
Нет, они нас бомбить не начнут. В западных странах считается, что человеческая жизнь имеет некоторую ценность.
Ну, а для России это не может быть опасно?
Нет.
Я думаю, что скорее для них опасно. В современных условиях. Но это мне как так кажется, потому что я не вижу перспектив вообще для них в этом блоке. Для них это опаснее быть в НАТО, чем не быть в НАТО. Ну а для нас это может быть чем-то опасным?
Да нет, наверное.
А почему?
Ну, НАТО не воинствующий блок.
Чем он занимается?
Он защищает.
Я не думаю. Но это может быть опасно уже в контексте текущей. Но в целом, как страна, присоединяющаяся к НАТО, мне не кажется, что это какая-то большая опасность. Ну, подлетное время. Здесь как бы две стороны получается. С одной стороны, конечно, для нас это в какой-то степени может быть менее безопасно, потому что, ну, для нас, как для страны, менее безопасно, потому что, ну да, вражеские силы ближе к нашим границам. Вот. Но ни Финляндия, ни НАТО вроде особо не были какими-то большими агрессорами, против которых бы имело смысл как-то активно защищаться.
Да, разумеется, это представляет определенную опасность для России. Насколько уже возможно, для России уже много опасностей. От России могут отобрать Кенигсберг, у России могут создать угрозы со стороны Финляндии. Финны отлично помнят, что они были единственными, кто отстоял давление Советского Союза на них. Опять же, понятное дело, что Россия не может позволить себе, ну или позволить ей довольно трудно, ну как там придется, вести войну на несколько фронтов.
Финляндия хочет присоединиться к НАТО. Как
Это
считаете, для России это опасно?
Конечно.
Ну вот, а почему, зачем они это делают, по-вашему? То есть зачем они присоединились к НАТО, а не к России, например?
Зачем они присоединяются к России? Они сами самостоятельно жили достаточно хорошо.
А к НАТО зачем тогда присоединяться?
Ну, есть люди, которые нашептывают страшные вещи, что Россия хочет Финляндию завоевать.
То есть их обманули, получается?
Я так думаю.
Для России, конечно, это нежелательно, поскольку еще со времен Советского Союза эти страны поддерживали нейтралитет в вопросах военных блоков. Поэтому, на мой взгляд, это нехорошо для России.
Я думаю, что Финляндия — это независимое государство, которое имеет право вступать куда захочет. По большому счету, базы НАТО есть у нас на границе и особо не проверяют какой-то враждебной активности. Поэтому я не думаю, что произойдет что-то ужасное, если еще одна страна туда вступит.
Ну а чем могут они на нас бомбы, может, какие-нибудь сбросить?
Бомбы на нас, ну, я не знаю, даже если сбросят, то все равно я думаю, что я уж точно ничего не сделаю, чтобы этого не произошло.
Вот бомбы сбросят на нас, когда присоединятся.
Значит, так будет.
Ну а для России это вообще как? Опасно?
Как для людей, я думаю, этот вопрос очень сложен. Как для государства, я не думаю, что будет нападение с финской стороны, поскольку это неразумно и нерационально. Я все-таки надеюсь, что правительство европейских стран более разумно отнесется к сохранению своих границ, нежели российское правительство.
Ну, вообще для России это может быть опасно?
Я бы сказала, что нет, потому что, ну, даже если НАТО решит напасть, но они вряд ли это будут нападать на ядерную державу, и это действительно приведет, ну, если не к Третьей мировой войне, то к какому-то более сильному конфликту, чем то, что сейчас.
Я считаю, такое соседство опасно.
Из-за чего?
Расширение НАТО, ракета на территории Финляндии. Соответственно, у нас под боком. Соответственно, не каждая ракета с нашей стороны сможет ее сбить.
Вы вообще думаете, возможен такой исход, что на Россию могут скинуть ядерные бомбы?
Все может быть, сейчас время такое.
Если бы хотели, сбросили бы давно, поэтому вот эта фраза, что если они присоединятся туда, сейчас сбросят на нас бомбу, мне кажется, это какая-то... Ну, это странно, по крайней мере. Странно.
А почему не к России присоединяться? Почему в НАТО?
Какие перспективы какие вот у России? Ну что, ну хорошо, окей, присоединятся они к России. И что дальше?
Получат защиту.
От кого?
Смогут лучше жить, как мы, русские.
Я думаю, это их выбор, и им решать, куда и... Ну, как я сказал уже, куда и как к ним присоединяться.
А чего они к России не присоединятся?
Кто, Финляндия?
Да.
Потому что они уже и в Евросоюзе, потому что они самостоятельное государство. Ну, у них сильно отличается политика и экономика от России. Ну и никаких посылок для этого ни у нас, ни у них, ни запросов.
Вы коммунист?
Нет.
Почему?
Потому что я даже не знаю, что это.
Коммунистом? Нет, конечно. Я вообще не ебу, кто такие коммунисты. Мне похуй.
Вы коммунист?
Нет. Я даже не знаю, что это такое.
Окей.
Я не хочу отвечать на никакие вопросы. Нет.
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 Нет. Я? Аполит.
Нет.
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 Это политический вопрос. Я не, если честно, в политике вообще прям не сильно.
Нет.
Нет.
Вы коммунист?
Нет. Нет.
Нет, я не коммунист.
Вы коммунистка?
Нет.
Нет.
Нет, не считаю. Сами идеи коммунизма я считаю интересными, но все-таки, по-моему, он сам себя дискредитировал.
Capitalism. Thanks to capitalism, we have paid promotions. And this is a paid promotion. I would like to share with you the application called Fitbook. Fitbook is the application for trainings. You can see how many push-ups you have done in the past, how many squats, and you can compare them with current training, right? So this is not only for those who exercise, but also for coaches. They can analyze, see the results, and I would like you to check this application. This is very modern, intuitive application. Link will be in the description.
Нет. Нет. Нет.
Считаете ли вы себя коммунисткой?
Нет. Относится к категории сказки неизбыточной мечты.
Нет. Я просто аполитичен.
Нет.
Нет. Нет.
Нет.
Нет.
Нет. Нет.
Нет, потому что я отношусь к политике как-то нейтрально.
Не знаю, честно говоря.
Вы коммунист?
Нет.
Вы коммунист?
Нет.
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 Я нейтралитет абсолютно.
коммунистом, больше реалист, наверное, в этом плане.
Нет. Коммунистом? Не уверен.
Сложно ответить. К политике вообще не особо отношусь.
Не считаю.
Я не шарю. Я не шарю. Нет.
Считаете ли вы себя коммунистом?
Нет.
Нет. Нет.
Коммунистом? Ну, скорее нет. Коммунистом нет.
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 Вы коммунист? Нет. А вы коммунист?
Нет.
Нет.
Я общих взглядов, так скажем. Общечеловеческих.
Но симпатизируете вообще коммунизму?
Конечно.
Нет, я не коммунист. Я при нем пожил и больше туда не хочу.
А почему не понравилось?
Отсутствие свободы, чего-либо интересного и вообще полный трэш.
Нет, отношусь скорее нейтрально, придерживаюсь больше космополитических взглядов.
Я не разделяю идеи, в принципе, коммунистические. Мне ближе, скорее, мир капитализма.
Я так себя не определяю вообще, как приверженца к политическому строю.
Вы коммунистка?
Нет.
А что, как вообще относитесь к коммунизму?
Я думаю, что идея слишком утопическая, поэтому не могу сказать, что сейчас я ее поддерживаю.
Вы коммунистка?
Нет.
А как относитесь к коммунизму?
Положительно, хорошо, круто, классно.
А что нравится?
Мне?
Да.
Спать.
Вы считаете себя коммунисткой?
Конечно.
А как вы стали коммунисткой?
В Советском Союзе.
То есть с того момента, получается?
Да, член партии.
Да не, наверное. А кто это вообще такие? Можно объяснение какое-то?
Люди, которые поддерживают коммунистическую идеологию за равенство, за...
Ну всегда заебись было вообще. Все дружно были. Да заебись. Ну сейчас, конечно, хуйня вообще. Но раньше попиже, я думаю, было типа.
А к коммунизму как относитесь вообще, как к идеологии?
К идеологии, мне кажется, то, что каждая идеология, если бы взять немножко лучшего и возвести это в одну общую идеологию, было бы только хорошо.
Нет. Можете посмотреть или почитать. Атлант расправил плечи. Вот, там объясняется вся абсурдность этой идеологии.
Нет. Я больше за рынок, потому что он развивает все области. Экономику страны развивает в первую очередь, потому что конкуренция появляется. Я не хотел бы, чтобы было как в Китае. Нужно придумывать новую какую-то мировую систему устройства. Капитализм — это хорошо, в общем, со звездочкой.
Я не считаю, что это прям совсем уж плохая вещь была. Наверное, для своего времени концепция интересная и как минимум имела место для того, чтобы попробовать ее. Нет.
А как вообще относитесь к этой идеологии?
Нейтрально. Потому что у каждого своя может быть идеология.
Ну вот что в ней нравится и что не нравится?
Скорее всего, то, что построение было именно личности и многогранности. То же самое взять работу, когда людей через определенный срок с одной работы на другую перенаправляли для того, чтобы человек был многогранным. И чтобы мог в нескольких сферах преуспеть.
А не нравится?
Слишком, скорее всего, строго все было. Строго ко всему. Даже те же самые частные владения.
Ну да, коммуниста, как вы догадались.
Вроде
значок не надел.
А как вы стали коммунистом?
Ну, сложно сказать. Но вообще, просто наблюдая окружающую действительность, рано или поздно приходишь к таким взглядам, если рождаешься в рабочем классе.
Вот какие основные идеи в коммунизме вас заинтересовали?
Бесклассовое общество, общественная собственность на средства производства.
Считаете ли вы себя коммунистом?
Скорее нет. У меня некоторые знакомые придерживаются не коммунистических, а именно марксистских теорий и работают даже в некоторых партиях. Что могу сказать? Ну, наверное, может быть, можно было бы хорошо верить в эту идеологию, если бы она по итогу работала. То есть, типа, я, например, считаю, что любая идеология, которая работает, ну, у нас как бы сейчас понятно, что работает, то имеет право на жизнь. Не, конечно, наверное, для этого просто нужны другие условия. Как бы люди изобрели что-то сейчас, ну, достаточно хорошее, но проблема в реализации.
Считаю себя гуманистом. К коммунизму отношусь скорее отрицательно, учитывая опыт нашей страны в прошлом.
Считаете ли вы себя коммунистом?
Нет, конечно. Ну, я отношусь лично плохо, потому что я против того, что все было бы одним целым, все было общее. Я против коммунизма, потому что, как было в Советском Союзе, у тебя лично есть твоя щетка зубная, возможно, трусы, грубо говоря. Все остальное сами понимаете, все общее. Зарплат как таковых, ты работаешь, ну, за еду, получаешь еду и все. Как бы, мне такое не нравится.
Нет.
А как относитесь к идеологии?
Идеологии положительные и отрицательные. Много минусов было и при коммунизме, сейчас минусов достаточно. То, что минусы были, плюсы есть коммунизм, были при коммунизме, не, коммунизма у нас не было. При социализме много минусов сейчас они есть. Что говорить, это можно долго просто. Но коммунизм всегда был утопией. Мы шли к коммунизму, это было утопией.
Ну, скорее нет.
А почему так?
Нет, во всех идеях коммунистических, которые были изначально провозглашены, они все замечательные. И как бы я жила под с мыслью, что в 80-м году я буду жить при коммунизме. Меня, в принципе, все устраивало. А то, что как-то немножко его извратили нехорошие люди. Потому что я знаю, например, коммунистов, которые вот до своей смерти во все это верили, защищали и были... воевали, потом это была дама. И... Ну, в принципе, как бы идея у них замечательная, что плохо, что ли? Каждому по труду. Просто замечательно. А сейчас и труд изменился, и понятие труда изменилось, что раньше была спекуляция, теперь бизнес, понимаете?
Считаете ли вы себя коммунисткой?
Нет.
А скорее кем?
Анархисткой. Вольнодумцем.
Вот, ну а про коммунизм что думаете? Плохая идея или хорошая?
О, это сама по себе неплохая идея. Ну вот вы знаете, молодой человек, вы-то не помните те времена.
Не, я там не жил.
Вот, да. Ну и мы тоже не дошли до коммунизма. Но вот когда был Советский Союз, мы все считали, что мы плохо живем, и только в Москву нужно ехать за колбаской. А на самом деле мы жили не так уж и плохо относительно того, что происходит теперь. Вот теперь-то происходят просто непотребные вещи.
Ну вы бы хотели, чтобы сейчас бы, например, коммунизм был бы? Либо чтобы как в Советском Союзе было?
Наверное, как в Советском Союзе. Когда я была, лет 12. А мне 58. Вот это вот настолько бы времени я вернулась назад.
Вот сейчас вот политики обсуждают такую тему, неявно, намеками, вот, возможность ядерной войны. Что думаете по этой теме?
Я думаю, что она невозможна сама по себе.
А почему так?
Потому что она приведет к концу всего, потому что не одна страна, а так много к этому всему подключится. Она невозможна сама по себе, это просто угроза.
Ну, если политик какой-нибудь попадет, там, безумный, все заебет, он решит сбросить там.
Его остановят, так как на пути от политика до финальной кнопки есть очень много людей, и не все из них без мозгов.
Я всегда за то, чтобы ядерное сдерживание продолжалось и чтобы никто не погиб.
Да нет, я не думаю, что вообще, в принципе, ядерная война возможна.
То есть, скорее всего, это блеф и разговор об этом?
Думаю, да, потому что в ядерной войне победителей, нет.
Сначала танки по улице поездят, а потом только ядерные. Сразу не будет.
Ну, а нет смысла никакого в этом.
Ну, кто-нибудь с ума сойдет или там случайно нажмут кнопку.
Случайно тоже.
А самые большие интриганы америкосов. Мы должны первые на них ядерную бомбу.
Это хреново.
Ну, типа, это возможно вообще, или они блефуют?
Я думаю, невозможно.
А из-за чего?
Это конец всему будет.
Не думаю, что придем в конечном счете к ядерной войне, так как все мы понимаем, что живем в мире, в котором хочется жить так или иначе. Каждый политик так или иначе все-таки и за свою жизнь беспокоится тоже. Поэтому я думаю, в конечном счете это просто слухи и все.
Я могу сказать, что я против войны и в любом случае. В каком варианте бы она не представлена была.
Я очень сильно сомневаюсь в этом. Вряд ли это возможно на 100%. Я не согласен с тем, что наши либо какие-либо другие политики решатся на такой шаг, потому что это конец всему будет.
Все праведники мира молятся, что этого не произойдет, этого не будет.
Ну, то есть, по вашему мнению, никто не решится на это?
Я думаю, разума у всех хватит, да. Это так, популистские высказывания.
Сейчас политиками обсуждается тема применения ядерного оружия. Ну, неявно.
Дружище, давай, честно, я не про политику вообще.
Ну, вообще, вот, просто что думаете, как человек обычный?
Я вообще не читаю новости, ничего.
Но я считаю, что это невозможно, потому что это конец мира, конец планете. Хотя в целом мы к этому и идем, но не такими огромными шагами.
Что вообще думаете по этому поводу?
Ужасно.
Ну, вообще, возможно там то, что там ядерная война может произойти?
Я думаю, что с учетом последних событий, возможно, все. В принципе, возможно ожидать даже такое.
Хоть бы предупреждали такие вопросы.
Ну, вообще, вот реально то, что там какая-то страна сейчас может скинуть ядерную бомбу?
Нет, я надеюсь, что это нереально, я надеюсь, что этого точно не будет, потому что у меня дети, и я даже такой мысли не допускаю, потому что я верю в коллективный вообще разум, да, то есть чем больше мы будем подпитывать все это нашими разговорами и верой, тем, скорее всего, это быстрее состоится. А если мы будем верить в то, что все-таки у нас все будет прекрасно и хорошо, то я очень надеюсь, что у нас все будет прекрасно и хорошо.
Не дай бог. Люди должны понимать, что это не решение вопроса, и что ядерное оружие это не игрушка.
Это страшно, такое не должно произойти. Я все-таки верю, что между людьми, которые отдают приказы, и этой кнопкой есть очень много пространства, которое заполнено каким-то хорошим людям.
Ну, вообще, в теории такое возможно или все будут?
В теории все возможно.
Ну, вообще, вот, лично вы готовы к тому, что может произойти, там, бункер ближайший,
Серьезно,
знаете,
меня это
находится?
спрашиваете? Нет, я не думаю, что к этому можно быть полностью готовым, если ты среднестатистический человек, который не имеет бункера или чего-то подобного. Поэтому я не чувствую целесообразным готовиться даже к этому.
На самом деле нет, как можно быть готовым?
Ближайший бункер, там, знаете, который около дома.
В метро, блядь.
Может
Лично
быть,
я не готов.
бункер где-нибудь уже выискали?
Нет. Я приехал в Москву не ради этого, чтобы искать бункер.
Никто не готов, мне кажется. Я не готов.
Нет. Лично вы вообще готовы к этому?
Да.
Все, хорошо, дня.
Я разберусь, меня не убьют.
У меня сейчас много проектов дома. Я не готов. И к такому, мне кажется, быть готовым просто невозможно.
Я об этом не думаю. Считаю, что если так действительно случится, сложно будет что-то сделать.
Ну, ближайшее бомбоубежище там подыскать, тревожный чемоданчик собрать дома.
Я боюсь, я не успею это сделать, если честно.
Я готов.
А что здесь делаешь? Ничего не
Ну, там тревожный чемоданчик собрать, узнать, где прятаться.
Молиться буду. Молиться правда буду.
А как к этому можно быть готовым?
Ну, кто-то рюкзачок собирает тревожный, кто-то
Мне
смотрит
кажется, у
точки
всех,
бомбоубежищ.
За последние 10 лет должен храниться такой рюкзачок, где собран паспорт, загранпаспорт, если есть, либо пора сделать на всякий
Но у вас
случай.
сложен?
50 на 50.
Абсолютно нет. И не успеваю подготовиться. К этому никто не готов. Победивших хоть не будет.
Молодой человек, мне 80 лет, я прожила, но у меня внук 38 лет, дочка, вот о них думаю. А я прожила.
Нет.
Потому что тревожный чемоданчик уже собрали.
Ну, в том-то и дело, я еще не собрал.
Сейчас вот многие медиа распространяют то, что был случай, когда оштрафовали человека за ношение желто-синих кроссовок. Как считаете, правильно?
Это перегиб.
Hi guys, my name is Daniel and let me quickly give you a couple of stories that's happening right now with these two colors, blue and yellow. So the first thing that's happened is some woman had blue and yellow air balloons and the police took her out of the crowd and they blew these balloons and this woman was arrested. It's actually not some woman, it's a pretty popular woman in Russia. She is sort of scientist. The second thing that I wanted to tell you about is some school in Moscow. It had blue and yellow walls, but right now it doesn't have blue and yellow walls. And the last thing that I'll tell you about is some woman had blue and yellow nails and she was arrested and she had to remove these colors from her nails.
кажется, это странно.
Это полнейший бред. Люди
То есть-
имеют право носить то, что хотят. И цвет тут вообще никакой роли не играет.
Это решение государства, но если бы я был руководителем, тогда, конечно, я бы не стал вводить эти ограничения по поводу этих цветов. Да.
Ну, я считаю, это неправильно. Какой смысл это делать? Ну, у нас же в России как свобода слова, свобода мнения. Что хочет, тот и думает, пусть то и говорит. Ну, запрещать что-то, например, связанное с этими цветами, я считаю, не ликвидно. Ну, каждый, что хочет, то и думает, то и говорит. Какие проблемы?
Да, я считаю, что бред, потому что, ну, если человеку нравится там желтый или синий цвет, то почему он не может как бы их использовать? Даже вот если взять вот тут эти же отбойники стоят желтого цвета, название, номер дома тоже синего цвета, вот эта вывеска. Что тогда будет все убирать и менять цвета? Ну, это бред, как по мне. То есть, ну, я не вижу смысла ограничивать человека в его желаниях и увлечениях.
На самом деле это как-то очень странно, потому что это все же просто цвета, которые не несут никакого отрицательного значения.
Нет, если это не агрессивно, если он этой обувью никого, извините, не пинает, да ради бога, хоть в гору.
Сейчас в интернете гуляет новость, то, что желто-синий цвет запрещается. Сейчас что думаете по этому поводу?
Я впервые слышу о таком.
Ну, скорее, неправда это.
Да.
Желто-синий цвет запрещен, я что-то это не слышал.
Ну, то есть новости были о штрафах.
А он, ну чего, он ходит в куртках с американским флагом. Что, с них надо куртки снимать, что ли?
Пускай ходят как хотят, это их право.
Да, каждый сам же выбирает, в каком цвете ему ходить. То есть это же просто одежда.
Но если кто-то флаг носит, то с ним что делать?
Ну, флаг это, наверное, уже какая-то провокация, может быть, уже с какой-то стороны, да.
Я думаю, что желто-синие цвета запрещены не просто так.
Вообще, надо штрафовать или, может, сажать сразу?
Ну, сажать сразу и штрафовать никого просто так не будут. Понятно, что люди не просто так выходят.
Зависит, наверное, от того, что человек сам под этим подразумевает, в том числе. Если у него просто желто-синие кроссовки будут, потому что он купил желто-синие кроссовки, это одно дело. Если он выражает таким образом свою политическую позицию, ну, наверное, с одной стороны, надо быть к этому готовым, да? Понимая, в какое время живем.
Не знаю, есть вещи, которые публичны, и ну, нельзя присваивать себе это какое-то обозначение. Вот есть буквы, есть цвета, но они не меняются от того, что их запретить, они не перестанут присутствовать в жизни, присутствовать в природе, откуда они как бы и вышли. Или там в словарях они перестанут существовать, потому что они вышли все там от латыни, и это так или иначе часть нашей жизни.
В общем, штрафовать,
историческая.
Штрафовать за это не нужно. Лучше
Штрафовать не нужно,
сразу сажать или расстреливать.
Не, просто нельзя это расценивать как какие-то политические взгляды.
Я не могу сказать, что это, правда. И, если я этого не видел и не слышал нигде об этом, значит, в моей голове работает то, что, это неправда.
Ну вот вы, я смотрю, в группе риска.
Да, ничего.
This really does feel like the final outpost of the USSR. And there's enormous statues of Lenin and tanks and memorials, and the amount of Soviet pride is bonkers, dude.
There are a few hidden parts of the world that most of us will be shocked exist today. And when I heard about the region we're about to travel to, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Well, Transnistria is an uncontrolled region of Moldova.
Hidden behind a highly militarized border, this region is, in fact, a country that doesn't exist. But this isn't a made-up micronation like we've covered in the past. This place has a population of close to 500,000 people. They've built their own army, have their own flag, their own president, currency, and even national anthem. They call themselves the Pridnestrovyan Moldavian Republic, also known by outsiders as Transnistria. The country was founded in very shady circumstances. But the strangest part about this fake country is that they consider themselves the final stronghold of the Soviet Union.
Transnistria, a small strip of land between Moldova and Ukraine, has been disputed territory since the fall of the Soviet Union.
It declared itself as a Soviet republic in 1990.
The symbols of the old Soviet Union still have pride of place.
But nobody other than a few other unrecognized countries recognizes it as an actual independent country. And so, what is Transnistria? And who still lives in this strange little country? Well, with conflicting information online about the safety of traveling to this region, we began our journey to the country that doesn't exist on a map.
What's up, dude?
The guy that checked our passports just subscribed to the channel.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, what are you doing here? Why are you going to Transnistria? And I explained everything, and then he subscribed.
Even though Eric is American, he grew up most of his childhood in Russia, speaking fluent Russian. And this trip will be his first one back into a Russian-speaking country since he left at 15. To get there, however, we first had to find a cab that could drive us across Transnistria's fake border.
Можете как бы проехать и нас.
Can he cross over the border?
Yeah, he said he can.
Okay.
Thank you. Ты оттуда? He says he's from there.
Oh.
I said, do a lot of people go there? And he's like, no, people only leave.
It's taken a while. So it's technically not a border, but they believe it's a border.
Ah, so he's saying because like the country doesn't exist, money can appear there and then it can disappear. So it's like you can do like sketchy stuff with money. So.
Where the f are we going?
Welcome to Transnistria. Just the fact that it's a fake country makes it insanely strange and different. So I guess we're gonna go explore and try to figure out if we can get an idea of what this place really is. These are the old Soviet water and drink dispensers. Only other time I've seen these were abandoned inside Chernobyl. Half the city feels frozen in time in the Soviet Union. I mean, look at this car. What even brand is this? And there's military everywhere. Like, I've never seen so many individual military officers just walking around, like, all over the place. It's really confusing. Like, some things here look ancient, some of the signs, and others look like they were just built. It's so strange. You take a couple steps off the main street and then buildings look like they're completely falling apart.
It doesn't look destroyed, it like is destroyed. Здрасте.
This is a street?
Yeah.
That's a toilet. Look at that.
Oh.
Oh, there's a guy right there. Hello.
Как туалет нормальный?
It's so weird. There's like, on the main street, it all looks new, and then you take one step off and like, this is...
After walking around for a bit and getting a confusing first impression, we decided it was time to blend in with a haircut and some tracksuits.
No, dude, all my worst haircuts were by Russian-speaking barbers.
Oh wow, this is kind of cool. I'm not sure if getting a haircut in a Russian basement is a good idea or a great idea. Yeah, just like he has, you know, like a... I genuinely have no idea if he understood. Is it good? Do you understand what I'm... We got haircuts, motherfuckers. Now all we need is fucking clothes. No brand deals, unfortunately, from Adidas, but go get Seek Discomfort instead. We definitely got ripped off. Apparently this is real, which I have a hard time believing. We ran into football players that apparently play for the team here that's playing Real Madrid tomorrow night, which is insane.
So yes, we discovered that the country that doesn't exist's football team, Sheriff Tiraspol, recently miraculously qualified in the Champions League where the best clubs in Europe compete, becoming the lowest rated team to ever qualify. And by complete coincidence, we just happened to be there the night that they were playing Real Madrid, one of the greatest, most renowned sports teams in the world. And with the game being in Madrid, we arranged to watch it on a big screen in the city. But first, we wanted to get to know some locals.
How are you?
Здрасте.
How are
Как
you?
дела?
Where are you from? Huh? Are you from here?
Не понял. Откуда вы?
Типа откуда? Тирасполь, отсюда.
Тирасполя.
You guys like living here?
Да, отлично. А он откуда?
Он из Франции.
Из Франции. Нет, вам надо одеть чуть-чуть другой стиль.
He says our style's off.
So this did not work.
This did not work. Да, say goodbye.
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 Можешь сказать peace, brother.
Как?
Peace, brother.
Peace, brother. Goodbye.
Peace, brother. Have a good one. This really is the last outpost of the Soviet Union. I mean, look at this.
This is a functioning government building with a communist sign at the entrance.
Wow. The amount of Soviet pride is bonkers, dude. Look at these coins. It's like literally Monopoly money. I've never seen currency like this.
It's just like plastic chips. What is the iClub? Is this like anyone who owns an iPhone here gets to be a part of a club?
My friend in fucking Tiraspol.
Yeah.
Very good.
The Soviet cafeteria. There's
This is what a cafeteria is like.
Yum yum. Never seen food like this. What is this? Borscht?
Borscht.
It's all right. How come there's all this, or like, maybe can she talk a little bit about the decoration?
Объясните тему ресторана, почему как бы советская тема.
Потому что уже все за это забыли, за Советский Союз. А здесь вот решили просто восстановить это. И это классно, мне нравится. Это вот компоты мы варим, да, вот в этих вот кастрюлях. Мы вот это наливаем. Этого уже нету, вот.
Yeah, so I think it's more of like an experiential thing than it is like we want to bring communism back. It's more like the way she's talking about it sounds like it's more of like the experience and the memory of like what they grew up with.
Спасибо.
We're walking into one of the main markets.
Здрасте.
Dude, a merchant just gave me this.
What?
He just I walked by and said hello, and he starts talking to me in Russian. I'm like, and he's like, have this.
Господь даст нам больше.
He said God will give him more.
Oh.
Ну, по-моему, спасибо. Спасибо большое.
Look at the light rays. This place is beautiful.
Я сейчас приготовлю чай, и мы будем чайку попьем с вами вместе.
Right now?
Подождите.
She's closing her shop to go make tea for us.
Так, вот вам туда конфеточки.
О, спасибо большое.
Oh my god.
Молдавская.
Спасибо большое.
Сейчас я вам принесу целую.
Вау.
Bringing us apples and cookies. We just walked in here.
Хватит. Томасу, чтобы память осталась, что здесь тоже хорошо принимают. Чтобы у нее любовь была. Ну, меня зовут Елена. У меня 3 сына было. Виталик, Константин, Андрей был. Но Андрей погиб в автокатастрофе. Его уже 35 лет нет. Всех вам благ. Здоровья вам.
She wants you to have love and health.
Вот и все.
Спасибо
Целую вас
большое.
с большой любовью. Как своим сыновьям. Мой дорогой, ты прям вот похож на моего сына.
She says you look like her son, Constantine.
Дай Бог вам здоровья, на тебе, мой дорогой.
Спасибо вам
Пейте чай,
большое.
пейте
Спасибо.
кофе, пейте кофе. Спасибо вам.
Dude, that's the sweetest thing I've ever seen. That made me so sad and emotional. Thank you, Elena. That was very sweet.
After leaving the church, we started talking to an old woman in her stand who insisted on giving us free socks.
No, she doesn't have to give us socks.
Он говорит, не надо, ему жалко.
She's saying no.
Can we pay you?
Нет.
Oh.
Stance. Defend stance.
It's for you.
Defender stance.
Oh.
Хорошо, спасибо вам.
Damage stance. Charge.
Спасибо большое.
Мой дом старый.
Это ваш дом?
Да.
А мы можем посмотреть внутри?
Berserker stand. Deck push down. Berserker stance. Countered. Intercept.
Это 17-го года.
17-го.
Sweeping strike. Pommel. Berserker stance. Arcane shot. Shadow step. Pommel.
А где вы теперь живете?
Slow shot.
Сегодня ночью?
Hunter's mark. Aim shot.
Супер, мы бы очень
Freezing
хотели.
trap. Cheap shot. AR.
Спасибо вам большое.
Floating shadows. Maze stun. Magic. Damage stance. Death wish down.
She at
Float
first was
down.
like very close up and then
Vanish.
like just opened up to us and showed us her her old home. Literally said like God sent us to her. There's like a park here, a roller coaster park. Like
Wait, there's roller
similar
coasters
park.
in this park?
Yeah, you see that right there. So when I was a kid in Moscow, there's this thing called Gorky Park, which is also like a little park area, and then they have these like tiny little roller coasters.
But these don't work, right? Dude, this looks like an abandoned amusement park. Dude, I hear stuff moving. Oh, dude, some of it is still working.
Berserker stance.
This is so crazy. There's no way any of this is still safe. I mean, look at this rusty old thing.
Stealth.
На рельсах вот этот?
That one works?
Yeah, it does.
Can we do it?
А можно нам сделать? Покататься?
This guy is the guy in charge of the safety of this. Hopping on a roller coaster that is half abandoned, I would not recommend it.
Everything is so rusty.
I'm getting really nauseous.
Is she sure we're not gonna die in here?
Yeah, sure. On this rusty little ride. Oh my god. Me, dude.
Oh, I'm scared. Oh my god, this view is amazing though.
I'm getting off. I don't care if she's not stopping.
Alright, it's enough roller coaster for me today.
Charge.
I'm gonna go have a heart attack.
Fear.
Мальчики,
Damage
Charge.
stance.
Капель.
Aim
You wanna
shot.
take a shot?
Sweeping
We're
strikes.
doing a vodka shot?
Yeah.
Berserker stance.
Yeah.
Berserker
We're having a
stance.
vodka
Interception
These
shot.
are the people guarding the bathroom, and now they're giving us some vodka from the bathroom.
In this half
Shadow
abandoned
step.
amusement park.
Arcane
Offer
shot.
vodka.
Frost Nova.
Wow. Maybe it's pee. На здоровье.
Impact. Slow shot.
Спасибо.
Kidney. Impact. Earth shock.
Whoa.
Arcane shot.
Спасибо. Очень хорошо.
Hunter's mark.
Спасибо.
Aim shot.
Wow, people everywhere here, people are so giving. Like people here make
Ice block
nothing
rounding.
in money. Like everyone tells us how hard it is to make money here, and people just give. This keeps happening when I
Earth
travel to
shock.
places that not many people go to, and
Counter
typically
spell.
people don't have a lot.
Battle
They're
master
the most giving.
swiftness. Damage
Like
stance.
you go to New York City, people don't give you stuff at a market. They're like, "Pay me, motherfucker." You know, same in
Counter.
Paris. They're like, "Where's the money at?" You come to these places in the middle of nowhere, and people just like
Battle
give.
master down.
It's amazing.
No part of you was worried about what was in that cup. They all came out to watch, and I was like,
Berserker
"There's this in
stance.
here."
Intimidating
No,
shout.
they would never do that. We're now in the suburbs of Tiraspol.
The grandma wrote her address on a piece of paper, told her to come at the end of the day, so
Countered.
I think we're here. Do we just try and
Berserker
open up
stance.
the door?
Command. Shadow 3. Seal blood.
We're дома.
Judge.
Oh.
Berserker stance. Damage stance. Earth shock. Coil. Fear.
We've arrived at this
Shame
very
judge.
kind
Imperial
Berserker
shock.
stance. Backyard.
Hunter's berserker stance. Shun.
Oh my god.
Berserker stance.
So many.
Sweeping
There's bunnies
strikes.
everywhere.
Countered. Arcane shot.
She was gonna give us a bunny.
Cheap
They
shot.
give us
Maze
something.
stun. Maze stun. Counter
She said
spell.
we're gonna
Impact.
work.
Oh.
Seal blood. Judge. Hunter's mark. Wrath. Aim
work.
shot. Maze stun.
Хорошо. Yeah, she said that everyone who's
Arcane
left
shot.
wants to come back here.
Berserker
So
stance.
she's asking us to come back here more often.
Mortal
Вам тут
coil.
нравится, вам тут
Fear.
спокойно, удобно.
Success.
Старость. Я 50 лет жила там было.
Damage stance.
Да.
Спокойно.
Defense stance. Disarm.
Stadium.
Damage stance.
Yes, she lives right by the stadium. The famous shitty football team that's playing Real Madrid tonight. So after this, we're gonna go watch the game. This is where they play and train.
I think in some ways being able to speak Russian again brings Eric back to his
Berserker
childhood
stance.
in
Damage
Russia.
stance.
So
Charge.
it's very sweet.
Eric, are you getting
Berserker
adopted
stance.
as a
Yeah,
grandson?
this is my new grandma.
Damage stance. Stealth.
Кушайте.
This is like throwback to Chernobyl. Like
Charge.
endless
Cheap
amounts of
shot. Shadow Fury. Cheek death wish.
Кушаем.
Кушаем. Кушаем. Хорошо.
Sprint.
Teaching me Russian and giving me
Sweeping
a...
evasion.
She saw me stretch for 1
Berserker
second and
stance.
she's like, I'll give you a massage.
Shadow step.
Nova.
She literally has fed us so much. And then
Battle master.
Спасибо большое.
Пока, спасибо.
Oh.
Спасибо за все.
Sprint. Cloak of
You got a new
shadows.
grandma.
Creation down. Cloak down.
You said you found a grandma.
Yeah.
Death wish
After
master
being
down.
adopted by our new local grandma, it was time for us to
Intercept.
watch what would become a game that
Seal
the
charge.
world would talk
Seal
about
command.
the next day.
Shadow
The local
parry.
team accomplished the impossible.
Came to a country that doesn't exist. One day, and it was the day that they played Real Madrid and won. Literally a country no one knows about. This being the best team in the world. Oh my.
I think people are drinking tonight, and I think we might join them.
It is time for us to leave, but as Eric befriended and got adopted by this grandma, she told us that she has a very tricky eye surgery that's going to cost her about $750. She said some people here make about $150 per month in salary. So if that's true, getting $800 would take about 5.5 months to make. And we wanted to surprise her with it. She's probably not going to take it. So we're going to have to strategize.
Привет! Как вы? О.
А я думала, вы уехали.
Нет, конечно. She said she thought we
left already. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Berserker stance.
Oh, she got us breakfast?
This is crazy. I'm gonna cry.
Hunter's berserker stance.
Я
Hunter's
хотел-
mark. Seal black.
Значит, мы решили,
Seal command.
мы хотели вам помочь.
Kidney. Arcane shot.
операцией.
Damage stance. Faint shot.
Мы
Slow
хотим
shot.
тебе помочь с операцией, так мы принесем конвертик вам, вы вам дадите и все. Нет,
Hunter's
мы
mark.
уже решили. Уже нельзя.
Pink shot.
Надо сказать да. Уже все
Arcane
закончилось.
shot.
Все, берите.
Earth
Прячьте
shot.
и домой.
Blind. Slow
Спасибо
shot.
вам. Всего вам
Vanish.
удачи,
Hunter's
удачи.
mark. Shame and grave. Fear. Earth shot. Aim shot. Mortal coil. Evasion. Cloak of shadows. Shot. AR.
Звоните.
Конечно.
Hunter's
По
mark.
вашим
Down.
телефонам.
Write down the phone numbers. Он говорит, вы сказали, что Бог нас к вам
Berserker
принес,
stance.
прислал, так мы хотим вам помочь.
Я сейчас тоже буду поддерживать как могу. Спасибо.
Fear. Hunter's mark. Success. Arcane shot.
It's honestly hard to describe the magic that we felt carried by on this trip. We felt so welcomed by the kindness of the babushkas and the hopeful energy from many of those who still live there. And then, of course, for their local team to create one of the biggest upsets in sports history while we were in the country felt completely impossible to fathom. The economic opportunities in this country unfortunately seem very hard to find. Many live and survive in rough conditions, but numerous locals we met also seem to have been able to maintain a positive spirit to continue living their lives despite their tough circumstances. Finally, a local told us a tale elders share with their grandkids, that when God made earth and distributed the land to all its nations, when he got to Transnistria, he ran out of space. And so, he had to take a little piece of heaven and place it here instead. Now, I don't know where this quote comes from or the intention behind why it's shared, but if these people can look at their home in that way, I'd hope that all of us could start doing that about our own homes as well. We'll see you next week.
Cheap shot. Hunter's
What are you
mark.
doing? What are you doing? What time is it? What time is it?
Flare.
What do you do here? What is your job?
Your assistant for 2 weeks.
Then you know that at 9:05 I like to do what?
Your phone, your news.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes, there we
Sir,
go.
sorry.
All I needed was Morning Brew because Morning Brew is actually the sponsor of
today's video. Morning Brew is a free daily newsletter that takes 5 minutes to read and keeps you up to date on not only what's going on in the world, but information you wouldn't normally see in the news. For example, this past week I learned that the US is installing $2.8 billion worth of wind turbines off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, which will generate power for 400,000 homes. There is no reason not to subscribe to Morning Brew if you're interested in business, finance, or tech. It's completely free and takes less than 15 seconds to subscribe. Go to morningbrew.com/yestheory and click the link in the description below to subscribe to Morning Brew today. When I used to wake up in the morning, my first instinct would be to grab my phone, check social media, and browse for 15 minutes. I never really felt like I learned or gained anything from this routine until a friend mentioned Morning Brew to me. Now I feel like I'm discovering stories I wouldn't normally find in half the time I used to spend on my phone. So click the link in the description below to sign up for free, and we'll see you next week. What was it that you were doing?
Getting you ready.
Okay, well, keep doing that.
Damn, magic. Mortal coil. Damn, magic. Earth shock. Cheap shot. Kidney. Stealth. Earthbind. Cheap shot. Battlemaster. Nature's swiftness. Earthbind. Shock. Seal command. Seal blood. Impact. Goose strike. Judge. Shaman Seal command. Counter Shadow spell. Step. Purge. Gouge. Battlemaster down. Poly. Shaman rage down. Poly. Damage Judge. Stands. Seal command. Success. Seal blood. Frost nova. Impact. Barkskin. Impact. Judge. Seal command. Nature's grasp. Fairy fire. Blink. Run, Forest, run. Earth shock. Innervate. Countered. Damp. Magic. Berserker stance. Innervate down. Berserker rage. Stance. Purge. Spell. Cheap Seal shot. Command. Seal blood. Purge. Judge. Barkskin. Seal command. Hammer of justice. Seal blood. Spell. Cheap shot. Earth shock. Counter spell. Frost nova. Impact. Presence of mind. Blink. Seal blood. Earth shock. Seal command. Earth shock. Seal blood. Purge. Judge. Purge. Cheap shot. Shaman rage. Countered. Seal command. Purge. Judge. Purge. Seal command. Purge. I can't cast that yet. Shaman rage down. Repentance. Damage stands. Charge. Kidney. Death Wish. Mortal Coil. Berserker Stance. Maze Stun. Damn. Evasion. Magic. Goose Strike. Grounding. Maze Stun. Earth Shock. Damage Stance. Death Wish down. Evasion down. Shadow Step. Monotide. Seal Command. Hammer of Justice. Counter. Hunter's Mark. Battle Master. Seal Shot. Judge. Seal Command. Slow Shot. Counter Spell. Blink. Frost Nova. Arcane Shot. Cleanse. Stealth. Impact. Battle Master down. Slow Shot. Arcane Shot. Kidney. Impact. Fear. Impact. Impact. Counterspell. Impact. Frost
Impact.
Nova. Seal Blood. Berserker Stance. Counter Command. Evoke Shadows. Will of the Forsaken. Charge. Slow down. Evasion down. Nature's Swiftness. Counterspell. Intimidating Shine Stance. Hunter's Mark. Aim Shot. Cheap Shot. Slow Shot. Barkskin. Arcane Shot. Kidney. Freezing Trap. Sprint. Arcane Shot. Blind. Berserker Stance. Shadow Step. Damage Stance. Shaman Rage. Berserker Stance. Charge. Damage Stance. Earthbind. Shaman Rage down. Mortal Berserker Stance. Intercept. Seal Command. Seal Blood. Judge. Hammer of Justice. Fear. Fear. Countered. AR. Gouge. Seal Command. Judge. Kidney. Seal Command. Berserker Stance. Damage Stance. Stealth. Earth Shock. Cheap Shot. Kidney. Kick. Berserker Stance. Freedom. Death Wish. Death Wish down. Hunter's Mark. Arcane Shot. Hunter's Mark. Flare. Seal Blood. Stealth. Cheap Shot. Kidney. Seal Command. Hammer of Justice. Judge. Seal Command. Berserker Stance. Damage Stance. Berserker Stance. Berserker Rage. Stealth. Cheap Shot.
I need to get closer.
Barkskin. Run, Forest, run.
Light be with you.
Steve, what are we looking at today then?
Well, I'm slightly concerned by what I'm looking at because you seem to be in a different location. Have you expanded? Is there something odd going on? And you're stroking something like a Bond villain there.
Yeah, I'm puppy sitting. So this is Marley.
Hello, Marley.
Say hello, Marley. Say hello to everyone. There we go. That's Marley. Marley is a Shippu, and unfortunately, I can't leave him alone for very long because he's quite young. So he's probably going to eat the microphone and everything, but it means that I'm having to do this on Wi-Fi.
Well, that's great, because I wanted to talk about Wi-Fi. We briefly touched on this when we talked about the Wi-Fi hidden node problem, where you've got the access point, and then you've got the two computers that are sufficiently far away from it that they can't talk to each other, they can't see each other's transmissions, but they can both talk to the access point. And we talked about how the access point could configure things by sending the sort of clear to send packets out to enable them to communicate without colliding with each other when both machines try to transmit at the same time. And I thought we could talk about a few more issues that sort of come up from using wireless networks that you perhaps don't get in the same way if you've got a cable between all machines. In particular, this is the fascinating sort of relationship between your sort of Wi-Fi speed, distance, and time. When we have a Wi-Fi network, we know the basics. We have an access point which is connected to our internet connection via Ethernet usually. Technically doesn't have to be, but that's what we tend to use these days. And then it transmits via radio waves, either 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. There are a few variations, but we won't get into that. We'll keep things generic in this video. It transmits the data to your machine. And we sort of know intuitively from basically having used it that if we are sitting close to the Wi-Fi access point, then generally we'll get a good connection. The speeds are high, but, and I think you've experienced this, Sean, if you get far enough away from the access point, well, the speed tends to drop off until if you get further enough away, you don't get any speed at all and you just lose connection. So I thought we could talk about why Wi-Fi networks have to do that and some of the implications that become because of the way they're managing it. Now, why does the speed have to drop off? Well, I think an easy way to look at it and to make things slightly tricky for Sean when he's editing this video, seeing as he's remote and I'm remote, is I've got my iPad here and we can see the problem visually. I put some text on the screen of the iPad and hopefully you can see this. If not, Sean's got some superimposition to do. But it says, can you see what it says here, Sean?
It's just bleached out on the Skype, I'm afraid. It's all completely white as far as I can see.
Can I sort of bring the brightness down? Also got noise there, and that becomes a...
San Francisco, 1975. The biggest electronic show of the year had just started, and the crowd had already broken down into chaos. The culprit? A new product that had promised the impossible. A processor so cheap that it could usher a new era for consumer technology. But what none of those excited attendees knew was that this was but one step in a year-long battle that a group of rebel engineers were fighting for the very soul of technology, and to prove that the future is low-spec. And we're still feeling the consequences of that fight today. This is that story. Brought to you by the Curiosity Stream and Nebula Bundle. Our story starts with an unlikely hero, a certain young engineer from Maine, United States, currently going through a training program for General Electric. He may not know it yet, but he will touch the lives of millions of people, many of which will never know his name. For the moment, a more pressing issue is happening. The year was 1960, and one topic was dominating every part of United States culture. The Soviet Union had taken the world by surprise by launching the first artificial satellite. The result was a race between the world's biggest powers to conquer the stars, and nothing pours money into new technology than a rivalry between two nuclear-capable superpowers. This was the world where Chuck suddenly found himself as a training engineer, designing tests and systems for missile and space vehicles, and this inevitably got him in contact with the growing world of electronics. As he advanced on his engineering career, one trend was beginning to capture his attention. At the time, it was common for computers to be enormous room-sized systems that people would connect remotely on, But Chuck thought it was obvious that this model of centralized intelligence was flawed, and a more ideal case will be distribute local intelligence where every device was a computer of its own. Unfortunately, General Electric had decided to jump out of the computer business entirely, liquidating the entire section he worked on. Undeterred, he took the severance and decided to start his own company, but Chuck quickly ran into the inevitable technological wall. As much as electronics were progressing, it was still ridiculously complex to run the system he envisioned. The missing piece was some sort of central chip able to run programs, what we will call today a microprocessor. Without it, the idea will never work. There was no way he could develop something like that in his small company. And yet, this technology felt like the inevitable future. But of course, he was far from the first to realize this, and a number of companies were chasing the same technology for the same reason, including Motorola. Motorola was one of the many companies tremendously benefiting from the Cold War and the space
Shadows
race.
Dance. Cloak of Shadows.
This iconic line that
Cloak
you probably
down.
have heard before was sent from the
Charge.
moon using a Motorola
Intimidating
transponder.
shot.
Tom Bennett, a
Arcane shot.
Motorola
Berserker's
designer, had
dance.
started a project to create exactly what
Line.
many had dreamed, a single
Inner
chip
focus
capable of
down.
running custom instructions.
Mastiff pound.
Knowing of Chuck's
Arcane shot.
failure to create his dream product,
Damage
Tom
dance.
made him an offer.
Charge.
Come work with me
Shadow
at Motorola
fiend.
and help me develop the technology
Sweeping
that
strikes.
we both dream of. The result was the
Hunter's
Motorola
mark.
6800
Defense dash. Shield wall.
microprocessor. Which
Arcane
will
shot.
not be the first
Money
microprocessor
burn.
because in a completely different company, a completely different team
Inner
chasing a
focus
very
down.
similar idea had put out the
Dispel
first
magic
microprocessor,
shot.
Intel 4004.
Death.
The story of some of the
Avenging
people who work on that
Dispel
is
magic.
pretty freaking
Silence.
crazy, and I
Dispel
already made a
magic.
video about that, so I
Dispel
would just
magic.
leave that in the
Counter.
corner.
Arcane
But
shot.
this was still an
Shadow
entirely
shooter.
new category of product, and if
Psychic
Motorola
shadow
could catch up, they could
Hunter's mark.
essentially own a part of
Arcane
the
shot.
duopoly
Forbearance
for an
down.
entire industry.
Slow
But
shot.
the problem with an entirely
Tremor.
new class of product is that it can be a bit tricky to sell. Chuck Peddle was
Dispel
modified to
magic.
discover that the marketing team from Motorola could not figure out a strategy on how to convince their clients to buy
Dispel
a
magic.
6800. In fact, they could
Beast
barely
trap.
understand what the product was supposed to be themselves, and
Counter.
could rarely conceive use cases
Death.
outside calculus.
Battle magic.
After
Dispel
many
magic.
attempts to
Dispel
train the
magic.
marketing department with absolutely no success, he came to a resolution.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
For almost 6 months, Chuck's job was to accompany the marketing guys into different companies and explain what a microprocessor was and what it could be used for. And quickly he discovered why the marketing guys were having so much trouble. The 6800 was a $200 device, and every time he reached the matter of pricing, the engineers of every company will visibly lose all interest. So, as any good engineer does, Chuck worked on the problem. Okay guys, I get it. Tell me what you all need. We need something cheaper, man. The price you're asking for that is exorbitant. Look, I get it, but it's expensive to add functionality for all of these instructions on one chip. We have to make our money somewhere. We don't need all those fancy instructions. We will barely use all of that. And that was the light bulb moment he did not expect. At that moment, Chuck realized that they had this whole thing wrong. Motorola had been so focused on including functionality in one chip that what they had produced was a bloated, expensive mess. It was time to start from the bottom. Okay, everyone, forget about the 6800 for a minute, alright? What do you need? Company by company, Chuck started noticing a pattern. The instruction set the engineers actually needed for their products was always much smaller than he expected, and engineers were perfectly willing to use several simpler instructions to make a complex functionality rather than pay for a bloated processor. Determined, Chuck convinced some people on his team to start designing a new product, a microprocessor made to work on that reduced instruction set that will be extremely affordable. The first low-spec CPU, a microprocessor for every project. The product Motorola truly needed. All he needed was the approval of his superiors in Motorola. This was a slam dunk of a product, so he had no doubt this would be easy. But this will not be an interesting story if that wasn't the case. So the marketing team Chuck traveled with was not delighted at this forget the 6800 skit. Repeatedly, they alerted the superiors that Chuck had been using their marketing trips to shoot down the 6800 rather than sell it. Chuck pleaded his case for a cheaper product alternative to a shockingly uninteresting executive team. They had bigger problems to attend to. The year was 1974 and the entire country economy was in crisis. A series of unfortunate events started with an oil blockade, the cause of war, and changes to the US currency led to a shock that the semiconductor and entertainment industry was really feeling. Side note, yes, this is exactly the same economic crisis that I have mentioned for like 3 videos in a row. It was way more impactful than you will imagine. Anyway, Motorola executives were way too busy dealing with this recession, and the last thing they wanted was to make a cheaper processor with microscopic margins. Why in the world would people need a cheaper processor anyway? This was a product meant for cars, industry, or business machines. The answer from Motorola was clear. Chuck received a letter demanding he stop all work on his cheap processor and stop competing with the 6800. Fine, I quit. I'm going to do it myself. Again. With the company in disarray over changes during the crisis, Chuck was able to convince some of their best engineers to leave Motorola. Their objective was to find a company that could hire them to build their dream ultra-affordable processor. Most companies they reach out were afraid to anger Motorola by working directly with this renegade team, but eventually there was one group desperate enough to hear them, a company they would change forever. Back when the pocket calculator was the hottest electronic gadget in the world and companies like Texas Instruments were fabricating the chips that enabled those calculators, an entire micro industry of companies popped up that will buy those chips, design a calculator, and sell it. One of those companies was MOS Technology. Eventually, Texas Instruments realized they could cut the middleman, produce calculators themselves for cheaper, and destroy the entire mini industry. The few companies that survived this mini apocalypse did by finding other products to manufacture. MOS Technologies was barely hanging on from the calculator apocalypse by making products for other companies such as Pong chip systems for Atari. Maybe it was this delicate position that made them, against all odds, accept this highly talented team of ex-Motorola engineers with their absolutely crazy plan of making a $25 processor. Heck, MOS provided some of their own critical engineer and layout design staff to finally get it done. Chuck team had one shot and they intended to use it. Pricing an integrated circuit in those days came down to a certain size on a certain fabrication process. They had a maximum dimension they needed to fit everything on. For this, they will pull from Chuck's conversations with engineers on what they actually needed, and will limit the device on implementing the most essential of instructions. Working from these constraints turned out to be a magic formula and a fantastic design discipline, and not only did the design team manage to get it done on time, but the prototype worked on the first try, and their creation was ready for the big leagues. The first set of the chip was called the 6501, a processor that fit into the exact same socket as the Motorola 6800. A device that would allow them to jump in and convince existing Motorola clients to switch to a cheaper option, and a much improved variant with its own unique pinout, the MOS 6502, the microprocessor they wish they could have made in Motorola, the first low-spec processor. But the best product of the world will die in obscurity if no one knew it existed, and the team at MOS did not have the budget for some huge marketing campaign. But they had a plan. If people were going to find them, they needed to be strategic. They needed people to pay attention. They needed one big splash. Are you tired of microprocessors costing hundreds of dollars? Wouldn't it be great to have a microprocessor on every device? Forget about Motorola, forget about Intel. The MOS 6501 microprocessor beats them all. The MOS 6502 saves more money. You can get a 6501 for $20. You can get a 6502 for $25. And this is only the beginning. Don't miss MOS at WestCon. Try either product at WestCon 75 booth 1010. Yep, these odds are real. It was a brilliant marketing plan. Western Electronic Show and Convention, aka WestCon. For years, this trade show has been one of the best places to announce new chips and the perfect chance for MOS to make themselves known to the world. But after they had run the ads and prepared their booth, MOS received notice from the WestCon organizers that it is forbidden to sell products directly at the show. The team at MOS had to come up with a last-second adjustment. As the convention center opened its doors in September 1975, attendees rushed to the MOS booth. The buzz regarding this impossibly cheap microprocessor was palpable, and everyone wanted a piece of their action. After arriving, booth attendees were informed that MOS was indeed selling their microprocessors to anyone interested, and all they had to do was take one short bus from the convention at the Civic Center to the St. Francis Hotel, where MOS had set up a secondary booth. Soon, buses were overwhelmed with people asking if this was the right route to get to the hotel. What awaited them in the MacArthur suite was an impressive display that Moss had set up away from Westcon regulations. Rows of impressive demos, jars of fresh processors, a documentation desk manned by Shirley Peddle, who also happened to be Chuck's wife, selling all the manuals for shockingly low prices. Now, there were several marketing shenanigans at play here. Those jars full of chips, at least half of those were defective units from failed production runs. But they needed to give the impression that they had perfected production at this point, and boy did it work. Before long, their alternate booth was the talk at Westcon. Among the conference attendees was a duo of young men buying a copy of the documentation from Shirley. They were both called Steve, one Wozniak and one Jobs. Keep an eye out on this pair, the Michael places. After the show, the phone at Moss will not stop ringing, and Chuck Peddle was ready to talk them all. Hello is the awesomely named Joe Dakota. He represents a company doing research for Atari. They are planning a new revolutionary product, and they feel their MOS processor will be perfect for it. Atari, freaking Atari, one of the most exciting and powerful consumer tech companies in the country, wanted to use their microprocessor. They had done it. The small company was now getting contracts from the big boys and was ready for the big leagues. But while they celebrated, miles away, the Motorola executives plotted. They had been ignoring this irritating group of rebels for too long, and now they were causing trouble. It was time they were taught a lesson. At the time, Atari was known as a powerhouse for arcade and single game systems, but they had been secretly developing an exciting project, a console with game store on ROM cartridges to take Atari into the home. Atari had been in negotiations with both Intel and Motorola to procure a microprocessor for the project and had been shocked to discover just how expensive their products were. There was no way they could make a mass market product with these prices. And then, at Westcon, Moss had introduced exactly what they needed. The public announcement by Atari that they had gone to Moss for the project felt like a bucket of icy water at Motorola. For them, Moss was nothing more than a gimmicky startup, and they could not conceive that a company of the size of Atari would abandon their negotiations for them. Literally the next day after Atari makes the announcement, Motorola sues Moss, claiming patent infringement and misappropriation of trade secrets, and actually does an additional lawsuit to each of the engineers individually.
In corporate culture, this is considered a dick move.
Chuck Peddle was furious. He knew how this industry worked. He had explicitly instructed everyone in the team to throw away every material they had from Motorola. They didn't use it. They didn't need it. He knew what this was. This was Motorola pushing around the legal system to kill a smaller competitor, but he did not copy anything. They had nothing on him. Hey, Chuck, do you think this might be a problem? What the f is that? I'm a layout engineer. These are the drawings I did while working on the 6800. Did I not tell you to throw away everything that belonged to Motorola? Oh, this is not Motorola stuff. I'm an artist. This is my artwork, which happens to be the layout used by Motorola. You dance, motherfucker! Over $1 million in lawyer fees, $300,000 in damages to Motorola, and an order to stop production of the 6501 that used the Motorola socket. It was 1976, and Moss was broken again and hanging by a thread. Luckily, part of Moss' strategy was to get Motorola to focus their rage on the 6501, leaving the 6502 with its unique socket still legally available for sale. However, they were nearly out of money. They did have a big Atari contract on the way and the capacity to make the superior chip microprocessor. All they needed was just one final miracle. And right as the year was coming to a close, an unexpected savior would show up at dawn, with some conditions. One of the many calculator companies that had been nearly drawn to bankruptcy when Texas Instrument decided to undercut all of its clients was known simply as Commodore. Led by Polish immigrant called Jack Tramiel, when Texas Instruments started undercutting his company, he tried buying chips from their Japanese competitors and came back empty-handed. So he had learned a simple lesson from the Texas Instrument debacle. He who controls the silicon chips controls the universe. And with the creators of the hottest, cheapest microprocessor nearly bankrupt, there was a perfect opportunity for Commodore to score a big win. Jack Tramiel had a reputation for being a shrewd and ruthless businessman that could turn any circumstance into an advantage. The exact negotiating circumstances Jack used to acquire Moss are somewhere between reality and legend. But according to the research done in Commodore, a company on the edge by Brian Bagnall, the most accepted story is interesting. Moss had supplied Commodore with a number of calculator chips, and apparently a small bug had been discovered in a certain batch. While the problem was small, Jack argued this was a major issue and refused to pay Moss from the order, starving them of vital cash they needed to cover their growing legal expenses. And right as the company reached desperation, Jack would kindly offer to forget everything about the defected chip and bail out the company from bankruptcy. And so, in 1976, Commodore acquired Moss for a scandalously low price. Commodore was now free to make its own calculator chips and compete again. But going back to such a growingly outdated product felt like a step behind for many. Chuck was unhappy. Right before the lawsuit, he had been working on what he expected to be his next big thing, an official 6502 personal computer. Even as back as his time in General Motors, he observed how many engineers will become proficient using computers through BASIC, a high-level computer language that, for the time, was very simple to use. For most of these workers, they will write programs in huge computer mainframes owned by companies and universities. Now, right around that time, a cottage business of tiny companies creating kits for people to assemble their own computers was springing up around the world and mainly in the US. However, they were not a particular hit among many of the engineers who had the programming skills to use computers but not the electronic skills to make their own computers, even from a kit. They wanted a product they could take home, plug in, and make work. And while not exactly his original application idea, Chuck could perfectly see how the 6502 could enable this product. Sadly, with Moss now going to make calculator chips for Commodore, it seemed that Chuck once again had to leave a company to pursue his vision somewhere else. As Chuck packed his things and started saying his goodbyes in the lobby, he was intercepted by one of Commodore's employees. It was very alarming that one of their best talents was jumping ship immediately after the purchase, so he immediately called Jack. Aware that this might be his last chance, Chuck went for the hard sale. He went through his observations and experiences and pitched his deeply rooted belief that home computers were the next big thing for his chip. A computer, huh? Say, Chuck, have you ever considered putting the energy towards calculators? With all due respect, our calculators are on their way out. Texas Instrument has all the momentum, the Japanese keep making them cheaper, and everyone in 10 years will have forgotten about calculators. There's a revolution brewing right under your nose, and you are about to miss out. Jack could not help but smile. While he was still solidly convinced that more advanced calculators were the future of his company, Commodore had received a certain secret project to make a product for another company that sounded shockingly similar to this, and it seemed that he had found the perfect person to carry the project forward. Chuck's happiness to be back on the computer project was quickly overtaken by nerves. The secret project deadline for a prototype was basically months away. There was no way to design a computer from scratch in time. But maybe he didn't have to. What if he could convince Jack to buy a company that almost already had one? Of all the companies making kits to build your own computer, there was one running in a garage that had caught Chuck's attention. Led by the very young man in glasses, Chuck had noticed buying manuals during the original launch, and his company weirdly called Apple Computers. Chuck had already briefly met the team at Apple Computers during a short visit. What he found was a company made up of a tiny team that was led by the two Steves, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, making a computer kit they called the Apple I. Steve Jobs was not particularly good or smart about computers or electronics, Chuck words, not mine, but seemed to have a good feel for what people will pay money for. Wozniak, however, was the complete opposite. Terrible with speaking, but with a good feeling for electronics, and Chuck was delighted to offer his help and knowledge to get them to solve several of their issues with the chip. Their computer was a bit of a hack, but Chuck spent the afternoon helping Wozniak get the processor running. At the time, he had thought nothing of it. Apple was one of the many computer kit companies, but shortly after, was already hard at work on a prototype for a fully ready plug-and-play computer called the Apple II that also used a 6502. It was perfect. If Chuck could convince Jack to swoop in and buy this garage company, they could repurpose the Apple II for their secret project. Hopeful, a meeting was set between Jack Tambriel and Steve Jobs. Look man, you might be used to getting your way no matter what, but the price you're offering me is ridiculous. Ridiculous? Young man, I have been founding companies since you were in diapers. Exactly, you're too old to realize what we're doing. We're doing art here. Chuck would have been horrified if he was not having his own clashes with Steve Wozniak, but this time of a technological nature. Basic? No, I don't want my computer to run BASIC. I wrote my own interpreter so people can write machine code. Look, if you want people to buy a computer, you can't give them anything that complex. And on they argued. Up until his last interview around 2014, Chuck insists Wozniak's status as the inventor of the personal computer is absurd, since he did not seem to get what people actually wanted to buy.
So, to say that Woz invented the personal computer is just not possible, right? He just couldn't have, right? Because he didn't even get what people were going to buy. He says that I learned something from him. I didn't learn anything from him. I didn't need to learn anything from him because we went out and bought another little board from somebody, and then we went back and designed the board from scratch up. We didn't need anything that Woz had told us.
Damn, that must have been one hell of an argument for them to continue talking about it more than 4 decades later. Either way, the Apple deal was off before it even started. With Apple out of the picture, they needed to move fast and eventually settle with buying a device developed by a friend of Chuck for apparently computerized sprinkle control, which they deemed they could adapt fast enough into a computer. Go figure. Time was running out because the deadline for meeting the client of this project was right around the corner. And that client was a chain of stores you might have heard of before. Radio Shack, a legendary electronic retailer that will sell anything from electronic components for hobbies to radios. But Radio Shack executives were worried that they were starting to be left behind by specialized stores selling computer kits. John Roach, an executive in the company, was tasked with finding a way to get Radio Shack back into the race. John had reached the same conclusion as Chuck. The future did not lay on computer kits to assemble, but on mass-produced computers ready to plug and play for the mass consumer. But this was a sophisticated project that needed a technological partner to create it. So they had reached out to Commodore to get it developed, which had ignited this whole race. January 1977, CES show in Chicago? That was the last time before they moved to Vegas, huh? The meeting with Radio Shack initially started well. Roach was convinced enough by the prototype to approve things moving forward, but Jack always uses every opportunity to gain more leverage. Say, John, if this project moves forwards, both companies stand to make a lot of money, wouldn't you say? A computer in every Radio Shack? How about we sweeten the deal a little bit? What do you have in mind? How about you have Radio Shack make a larger order of Commodore calculators? This was a miscalculation. John Roach had already seen the writing on the wall for the calculator business and was only interested in the computers, but Jack was relentless. The deal was off. Worse even, Radio Shack's holding company will go on to produce the computer themselves. And inside it was not a MOS 6502, but an entirely different, inexpensive microcontroller built by a new company called Zilog, of which I dedicated the last video. MOS was no longer the only low-spec microprocessor game in town, and if they were not careful, the revolution will start without them. After all the effort, all the struggle, it seemed like the project had been for nothing, except a miracle had happened. During this whole process, Commodore had intentionally leaked information and photos of the computer to a magazine, and immediately, Commodore stock prices had doubled. There was mass market demand for this thing, and so, to the relief of everyone, he allowed the project to move forward. Commodore will release the computer themselves. The first West Coast Computer Fair was set for April 16, 1977, and it will be a show that will indirectly change the world forever. The ready-to-use home computer for the masses was no longer a dream. On one booth, the Apple II by Apple Computers, a revolutionary product that will propel Apple into $1 million company and create an entire game industry. On another booth, the Commodore PET, the first of many computers by Commodore. The home computer was here to stay. In June of that very same year, Atari revealed the Atari 2600, the device that would create the idea of what a home video game console is, an idea that will persist to this day. And inside every one of these devices was a MOS 6502, the original low-spec processor, the invention that helped bring technology to people. Chuck Peddle and Commodore will continue to have fascinating stories in computers and video games that will easily cover many other videos, but the story of how one team of engineers believed that simpler, cheaper technology was the road to advancement is maybe something we should keep in mind even today. One extra piece of the story is that in the process of getting this computer working, Chuck clashed horns with another computer legend at the time, the one and only Bill Gates, and how Chuck will actually get Bill to make one of the biggest business mistakes of his whole career. So that is the story that I have chosen this time for this month's episode of SideQuest. SideQuest is a show where I explore tangential stories from these videos. So, if the main video is about how the Nintendo DS was supposed to be a vastly different device, the SideQuest episode is about the one Japanese company that glued together its own prototype to make a hit game. And SideQuest is only part of the exclusive high-quality content I am uploading to Nebula, a streaming service put together by creators for creators so we can create our best content without dealing with the limitations of YouTube. And one of the secrets of Nebula's incredible success has been just how cheap and easy we made it to get in. We have a bundle going on with Curiosity Stream, the internet's best service for documentaries and non-fiction content, so if you sign up to them using my link in the description or the button that will shortly appear on your screen, you get a Nebula subscription thrown in for free, and an exclusive 26% discount on yearly plans. That means that you're paying little over $1 a month for great documentaries like the Suppressed Science series about the most controversial science of today in Curiosity Stream, and exclusive content like SideQuest on Nebula, and supporting a large community of independent creators, all for like less than a cup of coffee. Thank you for supporting the dream, and thank you to Curiosity Stream for sponsoring this video.
Goodbye.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to part 5 of the world's fastest Power Mac G3 Blue and White. Now let's dive straight into it. Let's open her up. I tell you what, folks, let's take a little look, see what's happening. Now, in the last video, I got the jumper settings round exactly the wrong way on this card. So the first thing we're going to do is swap those jumper settings, if I can feel for where the little switches are. I should say dip switches, they're not jumpers. There we go. Okay, so that is exactly inverted now to be RAID 0. And pretty much hardware-wise, we are so nearly there. I did have one comment saying, Tom, you should put a little fan on the heatsink. It doesn't need it. It really doesn't, because this CPU upgrade, even though it's a lot quicker, it's a different CPU, it's newer, it runs cooler, so it doesn't require an additional heatsink. But I will be putting a fan on it, probably, because for the most part, I think it'll just look really cool, and it'll be good fun to make that upgrade. I might get see if I can get one with blue blades or something to make it look pretty cool. Also, I need to get a new battery. Everyone's telling me to get a new battery, so I will do that. and also I need to get some nice short blue SATA cables, and then we are pretty much laughing. And also I need to get a Bluetooth stick. So we'll do all of that ordering in a minute. I want to put Bluetooth in there. Surprisingly, I don't have one lying around. I don't know why. I used to have one in my MDD in the internal USB slot. No idea where that's gone. But anyway, we've flipped those dip switches. Basically all I want to do now at the beginning of this video is boot up the machine. Let's close her up. There we go. It's creaking a little bit, folks, and that is because the feet need tightening. Over time they do loosen. The handle needs tightening as well. As you can see, there's a bit of a play in it. It's just an Allen key fitting, so pretty easy to tighten. So let's power her up and see what she does. See if she still boots, because it's been a whole day since I finished recording part 4, and wow, I just can't believe how much progress we made in part 4. I was really nervous that this video series was going to get up into crazy, you know, part 8, part 9. I could sort of see it coming, but luckily this has been, well, I'm not going to speak too soon, you never know, but so far so good. I'm very pleased. Boot up is noticeably quicker on this machine now, guys. In fact, everything is super quick. Now then, aha! This is, now we're getting somewhere, folks. Let me zoom out slightly, so hopefully you can see a little more. Now, the card seems to have given us, hopefully one disc. If we go to initialize, we should just see one disc. Oh my word. It has worked. Fantastic. Now, I know you couldn't see the screen in the last part, and someone left a really hilarious comment about it. I was laughing so much because I was pointing at fingers at the screen and you just couldn't see it. It was totally overexposed. But basically, in Disk Utility before, it showed up as a RAID, but then it only had one disk that you could select, and that was 237 gigs or something. So it was all messed up, and I tried to erase it, and then it only saw one disk. So now that I've got the correct dip switch settings, it sees the 500 gigabyte RAID 0, which is awesome. So this is hardware RAID, which is good fun. And now that that card is set, we can erase. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it IDE RAID for now. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I just want all of the labeling to be clear on the 3 drives. When we do benchmarks and things like that, I can always rename them to something a little bit more exciting. So this is a lovely pool of 500 gigabytes of drive storage. Obviously half as reliable, or well, you know, if that, you know, quarter as reliable as just using one of the drives. But you know, obviously there's more that can go wrong in the RAID 0, but all of this is for fun anyway. So that has successfully created the volume. So we now have Macintosh SSD, which is our boot drive, storage SSD, and also IDE RAID. Now this is the update package to Tiger 10.9. What I'm going to do now as the next step is to download 10.7, no, not 10.9, sorry, 10.4.9, and I need to download 10.4.7 to see if it'll update to that. Luckily, Apple still have all of these files available on their website, which is quite handy. So that can sit there, and it's good to keep the machine running a little bit just to see if it's stable. I know it's not necessarily doing anything, but just seeing if it's stable with the new CPU and all of the upgrades and things, because you have to admit, this is one hell of a hardware change. Here we have it, macOS 10 update 10.4.7 for PowerPC. Now we've got the straight up 10.4.7, and we've also got the combo PowerPC. We're going to go for just the normal update because, of course, we already have 10.4.6 installed. So we're going to download that, and I can just bung it on the server and then copy it to the G3. I've made myself a special folder for the updates. And one thing that I am doing is opening the disk images on my main machine and then copying the installer over to my server and keeping it as well as the DMG. So I've actually got the installer package because the G3 was refusing to open the DMGs, or mount the DMGs, I should say. So that's just something interesting of note as well. I tend to find that although I love Tiger and Leopard and the older OSs, as far as mounting DMGs goes, I have much better luck with the newer versions of macOS. Lovely and speedy coming off of my file server writing to the SSD on this machine. So let's give the straight up update a go. Fantastic. It now wants me to install that. Great. Install. The other one wasn't letting me install. That is now installing nice and quickly. In case anyone is a bit lost as to why I'm not doing this through software update, software update will grab the latest and greatest. It'll grab 10 little help and nudges.
I see someone asking about the genre of the mobile game. We actually will talk about that, but basically it's one of two things, we think, either Pokemon Go or Clash of Clans, which both could be okay.
If there's a good Blizzard spin and the stuff is, doesn't feel like the monetization of those games, so advertisements and gems, which I kind of doubt they do it like that.
Yeah.
And they could be good. 3rd of May at 10 a.m. Pacific time, also known as 7 p.m. Central European Summertime?
Summertime, yeah.
Yes. What does that mean for us? 6 p.m.?
6 p.m. BST,
okay. We will also be going live at 6 p.m. BST on
we'll be there a bit before, but yeah.
5:30 so it's easy. We'll be there at 5:30. 5:30 BST on Tuesday, 6:30 BST on Thursday, and 6:30 BST on Friday next week.
Yeah.
So, oh boy.
Yeah, if you
it'll lube up the old windpipe.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
There's definitely better ways to track all of this other than keep it in your own head. Write it down in post-it notes, or no, here's the best one. Set the start page or homepage of your browser to the Bellular Warcraft channel, then you won't miss anything ever again.
That's it. And remember, you could miss it, but don't.
Yeah, we're not the boss of you, just your friends.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of content. Okay, to get into things. Warcraft, the mobile game reveal, it is happening May 3rd. and there have been a few interesting leaks. There is also very much something to read into in this lightning bolt with cogs and pipes.
Yeah.
Where do we see those in Warcraft?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that. Now, from Bloomberg, Jason Schreier, there's 2 games that have been, basically 2 games are in the works. Potentially a third as well. Now,
yes,
one of them is Pokemon Go-ish. I mean, it's not literally Pokemon Go, but it's like Pokemon Go. So something to do with perhaps traversing the real world. You've got your phone, you've got battle pets. Could be quite cool. However, Pokemon Go is a thing. We've seen many things try to be Pokemon Go. There's a Jurassic World game that tries to do that. There is a Harry Potter one. There's so many of them. So, to me, like the whole swipey gameplay thing, I'm just not into something like that. And that's the one I believe Corey Stockton apparently had been working on.
Oh yes, Corey Stockton. Yeah.
Now, if it is battle pets on your phone, that could work.
Yeah.
Right? For me, it's just I'm not.
Morning, all. Okay, so we're starting off today with just a little quick tour of the room that I'm going to be using, including that's pipe. That's great. So the plan is to have that covered up and have everything all insulated. So the tricky part for me right now is that the set is not its final design. If anybody's wondering why isn't that on the mount, because I don't want to have the TV mounted there. I actually want something else on that wall. It's a long wall, and I think there's a lot I can do with it. The TV I'm going to throw up on this wall, where it's a shorter wall, and it's right next to the window anyways, so then I don't have to worry about glare on the TV, all that fun stuff. So you guys can see why I said the glare from a window wouldn't be a problem. It's over here, and my set is right now over there. So I've got everything on the dresser. I even have the little desk that I use for the set here. My various easels, and I've got the art easels right over there. You guys can see all the pennants I've got up on the wall so far. Yes, I do have others. There are others that I have not been able to find in the stack that I still have here. And I made sure I didn't double up any teams, and I was trying to go with like retro, old-fashioned style logos. So the reverse retros really worked for that. There's still a few of those I don't have up yet either. But yeah, that was just, I had to have something behind me in videos. And then of course in last night's reviews, that doesn't show up because everything's just too close. But that's the thing, when we moved into the other house, I definitely got everything done very, very quickly. And I think I did it too quickly. And so I ended up with not enough room to move around, and it wasn't, I don't think I always made efficient use of the space around me. I was just in a rush to get it all done. So at this point, I'm not in nearly as much of a rush. The plan is to put the jerseys on this wall here. So the jerseys will go up on the wall there, the way they were on the other set. There should be enough room here where all of them can go up here. And then I still intend to have some jerseys on racks. The jerseys on the racks are going to be, changing out from day to day and video to video, and then that would be in the background as well. It won't always be whiteboards in the background of videos anymore. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to clean up and fix. The door there we need to fix too. So I'm looking forward to getting all that done. There's Shadow, just to prove that the cats are in fact here. It's been a hard move for them. Shadow and there's Bear right there. So they're here. They were actually hiding. They hide every morning I get up. I have to go get them out of their hiding place. Again, during the night, I guess they get spooked or scared, and they run and hide again. So I have to go get them. And I'm trying to convince them that this room is kind of blocked off, so they can stay in here if they need to. I've got everything they need in here, because of course I do. And that bracket, I got to get that off the wall. And then, of course, all the other stuff that's going to go up is going to go up soon. There's no hole in the ceiling, so if anybody's looking for a hole in the ceiling, it's not there, doesn't exist. I apologize for people who are going to be like, well, where's the hole in the ceiling going to be this time? It's not there. The cat trees, there may be a cat tree here today. So because I've seen people saying, "Where's the cats in the background?" Well, they're here, but the trees aren't visible yet. I got to have one by the window, and then I got to have one behind me. But I have to make sure that Bear can't jump off of it, and because if she can jump off of it onto out of the top of the jerseys, she'll do it. She'll do it in a heartbeat. So yeah, just a quick little look around. I wanted to do this before doing videos today, so people know what the dealio is. So yeah, the one picture I've got right now is that's Tala Ash from Legends of Tomorrow. So I have two signed pictures from her. That one she actually autographed to the hockey guy, so that one can go on the hockey set. The other one goes on the entertainment guy set. So the entertainment guy set, that one's still a work in progress. Yvonne and I are still figuring out how we're going to set that up. There you go. So I'm looking forward to this all being finished and being able to, get the echo out. I hear it when I talk. I know I have to talk a lot quieter than I normally do, and that's the plan. But it's an adjustment. It's a process. So I thank you guys for being patient with the process, because I think it's going to be worth it. This room is at least twice the size of what I was using for the set before, and I think it's going to work out really, really well. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. And so from me and from, oh, look at that, they're right next to each other. See, yeah, and I'm going through my hats too.